Westminster Council are now trying to make us clash with you. I believe they're trying to provoke a riot. If all these people turn up and there's no ability for us to control the crowd, they're trying to provoke a riot. They're going to try and cause a clash.
If everybody has a price, were you ever offered money to shut up and not speak?
Qatar. Stop their money. Because the influence they have across the West, £750 million they spent. France, the damage and destruction that Qatar have funded in that country.
Who incentivizes these organizations?
Just follow the money on the influencers. Dan Blizzard, what's his name?
Dan Bilzerian.
Joe, there's a picture of him sitting there now, like all juiced up and that, with the Quran. It's like, oh, fuck off, Dad. He probably got £1 million for that stupid post. 90% of the convictions of groups of men who children are Muslim. If they win, they're taking your children. They're going to your women. They're going to be their slaves. They've told you that. The leaders tell you that.
Roy got stabbed?
So Roy got stabbed multiple times.
Where?
Everywhere. But they.
And he survived?
He survived, but they killed a lot on that attack. So as he's running, said, fuck you. Because the witness account started coming out. Roy's in hospital fighting for his life. But the witness account started coming out saying, fuck you on Millwall. Like, all the witnesses saying some lad run at them and started punching them. And then, but when he's done that, he's obviously saved some woman's life. They're stabbing a woman and he's run over and started fighting with them. And then...
How many people stabbed?
Lots. Like 10, 12 or something.
Was that recent?
London Bridge, it was 7 years ago. Then, do you know what they done? They arrested Roy months later for Facebook posts and put him on a prevent scheme for counter-terrorism because he had the wrong opinion on Islam after he got butchered. I swear to God. He got criminalised. He had a fucking total breakdown in that. As I said, I'm pretty sure they've just okayed a film now about what happened in his life and the attack, obviously. But yeah.
That was the most recent attack? You had the 7/7 bombings?
No, we had 7/7, and we had a flurry of them, didn't we? We had three in 6 weeks. We had the Ariana Grande concert.
That was in the same month?
In the same month, we had boom, boom, boom. All the same group and all. Well, no. Westminster Bridge were 3 lads who we'd been confronting for years. Part of an extremist group, which become this extremist group that I originally started my activism opposing, but they weren't a terrorist group then. Then the government made them a terrorist group, took us from the confrontations. Yeah.
You grew up in Luton?
In Luton, yeah.
Which is an hour and 30 minutes away? An hour away?
Yeah, 30. Yeah, an hour away from here.
What was it like growing up in Luton, specifically, for you?
Luton's a rough town. It's named as the worst town in Britain, yeah?
Really?
Yeah, that's what it's known as, yeah. It's one of the roughest towns in Britain. A lot of poverty, a lot of crime, things you grow up thinking are normal, when you get older you realise aren't normal, the level of violence in the town. But Luton, when I was born in 1982, had 1 mosque. It now has 45. So white English are a minority in my hometown. So I've seen, but it's one of the most diverse towns in Europe for different cultures, for people from everywhere. And per se, so I can talk about my experience of growing up and what I experienced was that all other cultures and communities, i.e. Indian, Sikh, Hindu, Caribbean, Jamaican, St. Lucian, Bulgarian, Italian, all of us are sons of immigrants. And per se, everyone integrated and assimilated, apart from one community, the Islamic community. There was 0 integration and 0 assimilation. The school I went to had a Muslim playground and a non-Muslim playground.
You always went to the non-Muslim playground. What happened if you would go to the Muslim playground? What would happen?
No, just no one would. They separated themselves in everything. There were clashes at school. There were violence at school. As in, it was always whites and blacks together, and it was the Pakistanis because all the Muslims in Luton are Pakistani, Kashmiri Pakistani. So when I started my high school when I was 11, I just very quickly realised there was something very different about the Pakistani community. You mess with one, you might as well have declared war with the whole tribe. Like, if you got in a fight with a 13-year-old at school, by the time you come out the gates, there's men waiting for you. It was something just alien to what I'd seen with everyone else. When I went in, and I just explained this, and you know, I just sat down with a Muslim lady this week called Lubna. She has a show called Candid with Lubna. She was on The Apprentice in the UK, and she's from my hometown. She's 2 years younger than me. So I'd watched her story a bit, and she started speaking out against the bad apples within her community. Not against Islam, she's still a Muslim, but she started talking about the rape gangs and the problems of extremism. She's now been driven from our town. She's had to run and hide for death threats to murder her own killer, and accusations of blasphemy. But when I just sat down with her this week, because I obviously talk about my experience at my school. Now at my school, and I challenge everyone to do this, I challenge anyone, go to Luton and find me a Muslim with a non-Muslim. Just find me one.
A Muslim married to a non-Muslim?
No, not married. Just find me.
Hanging out?
Yeah, just find me one. You won't. You will not. You can go into the town centre, and I used to do it as a journalist. So I started my activism in 2009, where I formed an organisation called the English Defence League. And it was born out of frustration, desperation. I'd watched my whole life the decline of my town, the destruction of it, the liberties and freedoms disappearing, the two-tier policing, the attack on everything, on cultural identity. I just watched it all. I'd had a cousin who was a victim of the rape gangs, which in our country we call it grooming. I don't know why we call it grooming. It's a rape jihad. It's gangs of Islamic men who are raping and kidnapping, torturing and even murdering young non-Muslim children. So I had a cousin who was victim of that when she was a child, and she was found naked running through the streets. She woke up in a house in the Islamic community with men with beards all. Yeah, but they got her hooked on heroin, and I remember the conversations. I remember the family trying to get arrests made or trying to go to the police, and the police literally allowed it to happen. Now this would sound unbelievable, but now it's common knowledge. Now the world knows that the British police, the government, all of them conspired to hide these crimes, and they allowed them through fear of being branded racist. So and I had a family relative. I know so many girls that were raped and abused in this way growing up. So I watched all these things, and then in 2009 we decided enough was enough, and we started an organisation where we travelled the UK trying to highlight and have a discussion and bring to knowledge to the public, to everyone, what was going on in towns and cities like Luton. And it very quickly, when we left as a group of men in Luton to other towns, we realised that the same problems I'd grown up seeing were mirrored in every town and city. But as I said, when I sat down this week with a Muslim lady, I asked her about the school she went to. I said, was everyone integrated? She said, no. And I said, so in your school that you went to, she went Icknield, which is another area of town. I said, were the whites, the blacks, the Indians, the Chinese, were they integrated? She said, yeah, totally. And the Muslims? She said, no, it was us and it was them. And we didn't create that. That's what people need to realise. We didn't create that. We welcome everyone. Yeah, and then she explained to her that her son, who was in junior school. Now, junior school in the UK means you're under 11. She didn't tell me his age. She said he come home from school and he goes to a school. I know the school he goes to. So he goes to a school, he come home and said, Mum, the other Muslim pupils are telling him he's not allowed to talk to any of the non-Muslims because they're going to burn in hellfire. So she's very liberal, and she's not following the teachings of Islam, if I'm honest. She's just bringing her child up to be a good child. She's integrated, she's assimilated, she loves Britain. But as I said, the other Muslim pupils are saying, and that is the knowledge. I said, this is the reason why there's Muslim playgrounds, non-Muslim playgrounds. Because from this high, they're brought up to hate us. That's the reality. And for a supremacist ideology that says they're superior to us. Mm-hmm. But she explained that, and listening to her story was fascinating, because she explained that when she went to college, I couldn't go to college. I left school I left school at 16 with good grades. I didn't have to try academically. I just breezed it, if I'm honest. I got an A in maths and I never revised a thing, yeah? But, so I found it quite easy, but I also messed about quite a bit. Now, when I left school at 16, I knew back then, if I wanted to go to college, I'd have to be willing to look down the whole time, because the Pakistanis I'd be targeted. And if you want to look up, that's how it is. You'll face hostility. What are you looking at? And you'd face aggression. So all the English lads, you'd have to just walk around and accept that they're superior and that they're dominant. And I wouldn't be able to do that. So I knew leaving school, I can't go to that college because I'll fight every day. And there's so many of them. And they're so hostile and violent. So I didn't go to that college. But she explained that when she went to that college, which again drilled home everything I knew, she said that she went to the religious meeting. She went to the college you were supposed to go to? She went to the college that I knew I couldn't go to, yeah? So I just knew. Luton Sixth Form it's called. They celebrated in that college after September 11th attacks. Yeah? But I just knew I couldn't go there. So when she explained, well, she went there at 16 and she went to the first religious meeting, and the gentleman running the meeting stood up and said, we're at war. It's Muslims against non-Muslims. And for her, she was shocked. But I said, all of these things she said that she experienced is a mirror of what I experienced. But she's a Muslim. So it was very interesting to hear from her from within the Pakistani community. And it made me realise why she's nice, such a nice lady. She's not really following Islam. And she grew up and I never knew this, she grew up in the area I'm from. So she grew up in there's no mosque there. So she didn't have the influences. If she'd have grown up in the Islamic community, she'd still be embedded in that inward-looking community of hating non-Muslims. But she hasn't. So, yeah, that's where I grew up. Luton has a lot of problems. In fact, Luton was named by the CIA as the epicentre of terrorist activity for Europe. The Stockholm bomber, the fertiliser bomb plot, the 7/7 bombers picked up their bombs in Luton. So many terrorist atrocities are all linked back to Luton. It all comes back to Luton. And the reason it comes back to Luton is because al-Mujahideen, probably pronouncing it wrong, which Omar Bakri, Abu Hamza, Hook Hand, and some of the world's most famous jihadists, their organisation's head office was in my town. So growing up,
it had something to do with you praising the soldiers coming back from war, and they were against it, right? They said that they're fighting their brothers and sisters, and that's why we should impose war.
So that group, al-Mujahideen, had been active for decades in Luton, radicalising, and it was after the Beslam school massacre. Do you remember that? How old are you?
I'm 29.
Okay, so you're young. So the Beslam school massacre was a wake up. Everyone, we've all had the light bulb moment at some point. Something woke you up, something woke me up. When you're awake to the danger, it's hard to close your eyes to it ever again. So my instant come after the Beslam school massacre, and I watched as jihadists had took over a school, Chechnya, Russia, and they took over a school. So all the children are in the school, and then the parents have obviously found out. So the parents have come outside the school, the military are all there, and I can remember seeing it. I can still see it now. And as they started massacring the kids in the school, the parents were all dropping to their knees, screaming. There's nothing they can do as they're hearing their children be killed. And I remember watching it thinking, what is this? Because it wasn't one lone crazy individual. There was a whole gang of men. And for me, I thought, where does this evil, where does this come from? And I'm looking, and that's when I started going down the rabbit hole a little bit. And as I went down the rabbit hole, I found in my hometown of Luton, I found a video 2 weeks later in a chicken shop in town where these Muslim men from Luton, one of their names was called Saif al-Islam, which translates as Sword of Islam.
Mm-hmm.
He sat there giving an interview on YouTube saying that an attack at an English school would be justified. Like that. He was talking about the Chechen attack, the Beslan massacre. And I looked at it and thought, I'll be honest, as a young man, so I just thought, who the fuck is he, if I'm honest? And he's in my town. Who is he? And then I looked at who he was, found his group. This is when I found out who al-Mujahideen were. Looked and found their head office was in Biscuit Road. And I'll just speak very honestly here. I was at that time, a young football hooligan. And from my point of view, I thought, well, we're coming to find you. If I'm honest, you're not getting away with this. And then as I looked where their office was, I looked at the group, and I went down the next Saturday to observe them. And they had pace tables set up every week in our town centre outside Dominics. I never took any knowledge of them. I didn't care back until remember, this is before terrorist attacks in the UK. Yeah, so it's before 7/7.
Mm-hmm.
This was 2003, 2004. Yeah, so I've looked. And I've gone down and watched, and I've looked at the leaflets and listened to what they're saying. They were openly promoting jihad. They were openly calling for war against non-Muslims. And they were openly recruiting and sending people to fight against British forces. And I went, and there was a police officer there in the town. I said, what's going on here? How is this going on? And she said, it's freedom of speech. So I said, okay, see if it's freedom of speech next Saturday when we turn up. So then next week I went and I organised and I handed out leaflets and I called it Ban the Luton Taliban. Now, I gave a presentation at Oxford University where I went back in and dug up, because when I'd done these leaflets, it made front page of my local newspaper. Mm-hmm. And in the leaflets, my rhetoric has never changed. You can dig up the leaflet. In fact, I pull up the front page of my local paper where they published the leaflet, yeah, in 2004. So when I give a presentation in 2015 at Oxford University, I went back through the archives of the newspaper in the library and I got the front cover. It's called Ban the Loot and Taliban. And in that leaflet, I said, whites and blacks are being religiously and racially targeted in this town and no one's stopping it, yeah. Our daughters and our sisters are being targeted with drugs. They're being hooked for paedophilic gangs. Now, this was 2004. That is now grooming. It's what people know as grooming. But I named the gang. There was a gang in Luton called the Gambinos. 100, 200 strong Pakistani mafia group.
Gambinos.
Yeah, I know. Very original, you mugs. I mean, at least make your own names up. They use the names of the Italians. So that's their name. And I named them. I named what they're doing. I asked the police in the leaflet if we know what they're doing and we know which businesses are doing it. Because now everyone knows we're grooming. Certain businesses, taxi ranks, were all involved in it in every city. Yeah, but we knew that in Luton. So if we know that shop is grooming children and prostituting them and hooking them on heroin and these taxi ranks are working, why aren't the police doing anything? So that's what the leaflet done. But the fallout for me at that age, at 24, I done it barefaced as Stephen Lennon. Yeah, so I done it barefaced. I stood up, and on that day they weren't there, so it worked because I'd say probably 250 young English lads turned up. I'll be honest, to confront the jihadists in our town, and they didn't turn up. They're shithouses. They didn't turn up on that Saturday, but then I stood up and I read this. And then the fallout from that, which I very realised I was targeted from that point on. My house was smashed up. The Pakistani gangs, all of them had a target on me. But at that time, I was young and we were a group of football supporters who would, on a Saturday, have a large group of men. And for a few years there then, we clashed with the gangs. And it come to the point where if I wanted to go out on the town, I'd only go out if we'd need numbers, because in all the clubs are all the gangs, in all the bars are all the gangs. They're in the town and we were in the town. So for a few years there, we were clashing heavily.
And they saw you as the head of the organisation?
No, so there was no. They saw me at the young Luton's football hooligan group was called the Men in Gear. The
EDL wasn't formed at the time.
EDL wasn't formed. This was the MIGs, so Men in Gear. I was probably prominent figure in the youth of that at the time because I was young. So yeah, and then you had the older lads, and the older lads, just to explain it to people. So when I grew up, my uncles were founding members of the football hooligan scene. So I grew up listening to the stories and aspiring and listening to it in that background and thinking it was great. As I'm 42 now, yeah, looking back.
29. You look 29. 28.
Oh, thank you. But I'd look and think, it may sound like madness to people hearing about football violence. I guess it was part of a cultural scene for us, for me. And it was just, and some people understand, it's lots of young men who get together and they don't mind a punch up with each other. There's no weapons. There's fair game rules. No one's going to stab anyone. You're not going to see 20 men kicking the hell out of one man. It's not that. You'd shake hands on afterwards. But men who didn't mind a fight. And I guess growing up in Luton, there was high levels of violence. But looking now, I'm 42 and I'm a father of 3. Am I going to be running around fighting people over football? No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm a different man now. But that's just going back to explain where I was at that stage in my life. And at that stage in my life, I had a very good job and career. I was an aeronaut. Most football lads do. They're not scumbags. Yeah, they're decent, hard-working men who just let off on a Saturday. But again, so that was at that point, and I faced a lot of opposition then from the Pakistani gangs. Now, by the time 2009 comes, I've got 7 properties. I'm working hard. I'm successful.
You had 7 properties before this whole thing started?
By the time
Your activism?
By the time I got to the EDF, before I started the English Defence League, I had 2 businesses. I had a plumbing business. We had 6 employees, turning over hundreds of thousands every year.
Wow.
And I had a sunbed shop in the town centre. And I had 7 properties. I was buying properties with my ex-wife. Yeah. So by this point, I've got to the point of success. My passion was making money. I'd got to the point, like everyone, where I could leave Luton because that's what everyone wants to do. Yeah. And I moved out of Luton and I'd started a family. And then 2009, there was a soldiers' homecoming parade in the town.
That's the one I'm talking about.
This is what ignited, this is what gave birth to the EDL. This changed my life forever. Because as I said, I don't know where my life would be now if this didn't happen. So 2009, soldiers' homecoming parade, and the same group, which I'd already had my eyes on for years, but by this point, I'd just getting on with my life. Yeah? I'd stopped, like we had those few years of clashes, it sort of got to that point. And then they attacked the soldiers. The soldiers were marching through the town, they were given the freedom of the town. Tuesday morning, I turned up with my cousin to pay respects. In this regiment, Scott Muntridge, who was from the estate I was originally, my mum and that are from, and my family are from, he died, and Michael Swain, who was only 19 or 18, lost his legs. And then hundreds of Muslims turned up and spat in their faces and called them butchers of Basra, baby killers. And it wasn't the point that this group done that for me, because I know this group, I know their ideology, I know who they are. So people understand as well, you know, many of these men have gone and fought and died now for ISIS. But that may seem a million miles away to some people. I went to school with them. Yeah? I know them. So when the Stockholm bomber left Luton and blew himself up in Stockholm, yeah, he lived 2 doors up from my auntie. Yeah? So this may seem, when we talk about jihad and terrorism, yeah, we stand next to them in the bank. We have to share the public space with them because you've brought them all into our town. So this isn't a million miles away for us. Yeah? Every time our town's name is dragged through the mud and makes headlines, it's to do with these scumbags. Jihad, terrorism. 2009 comes, and I went down that day and I watched as I saw all the niqabs. Like, it's quite a sight when you see 30 or 40 women in niqabs together.
Where everything is covered, only the eyes are...
Everything only the eyes. But when I saw the group and I saw so many police, then I started spotting Saif al-Islam, all the jihadist groups. Remember, they weren't prescribed at this point, this group. Roger, I used to hang around with him as a kid. He went to jail for armed robbery. He come out, converted to Islam. He's now been in jail for ISIS. But I know him. I know all his family. Yeah? And I started seeing them all. And a mob of them.
Why did he convert to Islam?
Everyone converts to Islam in prison. Everyone. If you want safety, everyone converts. Islam.
And then you can't leave.
No, you can't leave. But and then when you come out of the prison system, the English-speaking mosques are the Wahhabist and Salafist mosques. So all the converts become radical anyway. So, but the prison system. Say for example, we'll get onto it. But I just come out of jail now 3 months ago for making a documentary. Insane. I got an 18-month prison sentence for sharing a factual film. Yeah, but I got 18 months in that jail. Remember, 6% of the UK is Muslim.
How can people find the film? What should they...
I'm not allowed to tell you because I'll go straight back to jail.
Don't tell me.
Yeah. So, but in that prison, 40% of the prison I was in is Muslim. 6% of the UK is Muslim. 40% of that prison. All the maximum security dispersal prisons are 50% Islamic. Our prisons are ISIS training camps now. That's all. They're just jihadist centres, and they're radicalising and recruiting. In America, wake the fuck up, because they're doing the same there. They're converting the blacks. They're taking historical grievances and they're turning it all. Yeah, and the Nation of Islam, all these different groups, and they're in the prison system, and we're not stopping them, and neither are you, because I've been looking at the conversion rates even in America. It's insane what's happening. They're building an army. That's what's happening in the UK. They're building an army of radicalised, hardened, toughened men. Yeah, but so this happened in Luton. But when this happened in Luton, I watched as the police. I'm watching, and I see all the jihadists, and I see them open my town hall, like our government building, and they walk them through. The police escorted them through the town hall. I'm thinking, what's going on here? And then I hear all the commotion, and at the back of the town hall, as the soldiers marched past, so the police took the jihadists through our government building to the front of where the soldiers are marching to spit in their faces and attack them. And that is the level of where we were at. So when I say they let them rape kids, which again we'll get on to, they had never heard the word no. So the Islamic community, 9 o'clock. Yeah, we'll start. That's all right. Let me just get on this.
Do you want to share what's going on?
Yeah, so what's going on is we've got our biggest demonstration. I think the biggest demonstration in British history is coming on Saturday. A rally for free speech, opposition to the government, etc. And we've had this worked. We've spent months liaising and working with the police, and what they've just done is the council, Westminster Council, so the government, have revoked our licence to build structures to hold our speaker systems. So they're trying to, I believe, provoke a riot. They're trying to turn us and the police against each other. So now, we only found this out yesterday. We've been working on it. We've now got a meeting with the police. right now.
Mind you, the demonstration is in 2 days from now.
That's what I mean. They've done it last minute, and they're trying to make us clash with the police. So I believe the government are attempting. The last thing they want, our last 4 demonstrations, we've set up an organisation, I'll explain in a minute, called Unite the Kingdom, unifying Britain together against the destruction of our culture and country. That's it. That's our logo. That's our brand. I can explain it all. But our last 4 events have been totally peaceful. So I'll be honest. I truthfully believe Westminster Council are now trying to make us clash with you. I believe they're trying to provoke a riot. Yeah. If all these people turn up and there's no ability for us to control the crowd, it's going to descend into chaos. And I truthfully believe, lads, that this has been done purposely for the last 5 years. Every time I believe all the clashes, we've got to a point where there's no clashes with police. We're building, we don't want this. The last thing we want is this. No. So we, if they're trying to get enforcement put in, they're trying to provoke a riot. I believe that this is their intention.
Can I quickly update our Tom? Because Tom won't know this because he wasn't on duty yesterday, and Wayne got the call from Paul yesterday morning. So Tom, there was an indication, I think, from what we understand. Paul called Wayne yesterday and said it was something to do with a structured licence. Is that right, from your perspective? And then we've obviously advised him to speak to the council because that's not something that we have the ability to influence from a police perspective. But what's the update from your side? Have you spoke any further? Because Wayne, what time did you get the call from Paul yesterday?
Yeah, so it was quite early yesterday morning. Paul just said basically that the council had rang him quite early, saying something about them looking to revoke the structural notice. But you, Steve, and Adam were dealing with it.
Yeah, dealing with it, but it's because they are revoking it. Now, if they revoke it...
They are revoking it. Is that the last update?
The last update was they're revoking it, which then I guess they're going to revoke it in the hope that the police enforce it. Because, to be honest, if they're revoking it, this could descend into absolute anarchy. Yeah. Now, on safety issues, we've had a licence, they gave us a licence, and 2 days before an event like this, with so many people coming to the capital city, they're going to purposely try and provoke mass chaos. And that's the government. Now, obviously, our job and your job, all we want is safety for everyone. So if they want, we're going to set up anyway. Yeah, we're setting up that. So without a licence or with a licence, because that is the right thing to do, is to be able to control the crowds and make sure there's not disorder. Now, I guess they're going to hope, I don't know where we stand legally, is that they're going to then try and use you guys, which again, they're purposely doing it. They're going to try and cause a clash. They're going to use you guys to try and enforce some stupid order that we can't set up. Like,
in terms of, just so I understand what it is, so it's structured. So from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, or do you want to just talk through what your stage build is?
So
we've got a picture quite early from Paul, just so we understand what you're thinking it's going to look like, and then the question for me is what bit's being revoked.
So they have to build structures to put the speaker systems on, and we were doing that from Friday night at 10 p.m. So everyone, the teams were all turning up. They're going to build temporary structures, which they've been given a license for to build them.
How many are there? Do you know?
So there'll be either side of the screen. So one here, and then there's four sets, aren't there, every 70 metres. So they'll be setting them up and building them. Now, bearing in mind, we've hired 20 private security to make sure there's no problems. We've got everything ready. Now, if they can't set them up, no one can hear because of the way the sound system is. So, and the reason they're saying is because the temporary road closure. So they've just found a little niche where they can basically revoke the setting up of the licence, yeah? But I'm hoping that this is just civil. So if they want,
have you had a meeting with them yet? Have you has it been has it just been because obviously there was a call to Paul when Wayne got the call.
Yeah, we filled no, because we filled everything out. We jumped through all the hoops to get the licence. They gave us a licence, and then now 48 hours before the biggest event in London, they're going to jeopardise the safety of everyone, including your officers as well as our supporters, by trying to cause a clash between the two. Right. Which essentially, if it's civil. If this is civil, then take me to court after the event. If you want to prosecute me after the event. But simply, if they don't allow the speaker set up, lads, we don't want to clash with the police. We really are doing everything we can.
We don't want that, you know that.
I know. I know, but they're in the middle trying to pivot us against you. That's what they're going to do. It's a bit fucking late in the game, innit? 48 hours before the fucking event. You know what I mean?
Absolute cheeky fuckers.
Pulling it for it, but it's clear. The police know what they're trying to do. We know what they're trying to do. They're trying to cause a clash, which is insane, isn't it? The government aren't thinking of safety. So yeah, so I watched as our police took them through the town hall to attack our soldiers. And the problem is, they'd never been told no. Like, this is a jihadist group. If I said now, right, and this is the thing, if I said, right, I want to protest outside the East London Mosque with all my supporters, they'd say no. Right? They'd always say no. You can't for safety, you can't for this, you can protest down there. Well, you wanted to protest against the war, protest at the council. Protest against the government. Don't attack our soldiers on their homecoming parade. Least of all when they weren't at war, they were training in the army out there. They weren't killing. Yeah, but so the frustration was that, and after that we sat down as Luton lads, and the police turned their batons on all the English people paying us. They didn't even look at the Muslims. They stood with their backs to them, and they let them shout abuse, spit, hurl abuse, whilst looking at the English people attacking them. That's what we saw. So that two-tier policing. Then after that, I set up a group called the United People of Luton, which was to say enough's enough. We wanted to show the rest of the country that we respect our armed forces and have a protest over it. And when we attempted to do that again, we came out, and I paid a private wedding cameraman. He must have got a surprise because he's used to filming weddings, and I brought him to film our event. Just said, film everything. And the reason I've done that is because growing up in Luton, I know what the police are going to do. And they turned up, take your shoes off, putting their hat, searching us. And as they're doing all
searching you, what about the anti?
No, so this is our first protest in support of our armed forces. It was Bank Holiday May. So the attack happened against the soldiers. 4 weeks later, we organised a rally in support of the armed forces. When we've turned up, that's when the cameraman's come. We're trying to get to the War Memorial to pay respects, and the police turned up, take your shoes off, searching us, what's your name? And as they're doing this, I said to the officers, you didn't do this to them, lads. I was there that day. You didn't even look at them. You certainly didn't search them. You didn't put your hands on them. You didn't abuse their rights in the way you're abusing ours. Now, all we're trying to do, they're terrorists. All we want to do is get to the War Memorial to pay respects. You actually facilitated them with no opposition to attack our soldiers. So the frustration was growing in the town. And what they then did is they kettled us for 3 hours. The police did. They blocked us in the road and they wouldn't let anyone leave. My auntie was urinating in the street. So women, and then as this was happening, we said, you wouldn't do this to Muslim women. You wouldn't lock Muslim women in a road and not let them go to the toilet, which is what you're now doing to us. So at that start of it, whilst we were angry about everything, it became more about our rights. It became more about us being oppressed by the police and them not being dealt with at all. Totally different treatment, which when I spoke about this in 2009, this is now, since the Hamas rallies especially, since October 7th, it's something the whole world now knows. Two-tier policing, it's part of British vocabulary now, yeah? But that's something I've seen my whole life. So it's not like I've had some crystal ball, because where I'm at now is people hated me. From 2009, we can talk what's just happened to Charlie Kirk. The media, the government, and organisations on behalf of the government lie, smear, attack, far-right, racist, Nazi. They paint a picture of you for trying to speak out, and they justify violence against you. Where when people commit violence against you, they actually think they're doing right, yeah, because they've been radicalised by the government.
Yeah.
By the government, yeah, by government groups and by far left groups who are in bed with governments. They put the target on you, which is what's just happened to Charlie Kirk. But so that's what I faced. I faced smears, accusations that I was lying. But fast forward to where we're at now, it's been what 16 years later. People realise I wasn't lying. They realised that I wasn't that hate figure that they were told I was. I'm not a Nazi. I'm not racist. I'm just a lad from Luton Town who's seen all these wrongs. It's not like I had some crystal ball, because everything I said has come into fruition. All the warnings I gave, people now realise, shit, he knew. Yeah. Why did I know? Because I've already seen it happen. I've experienced it all. I've seen it. I've lived it. It's not like, and then so many people. So I had a debate with a bloke on a show. This is going back in years ago. And he was an expert on multiculturalism. That was his role. And I said to him, where did you grow up? Exeter. Exeter is 99.99999% white Christian town. So how are you the fucking how are you the expert on this issue when I've grown up where I've grown up? And the problem is, so many of these liberals and these elitists, they don't live it. So it's like me reading a book on building a house and thinking I can build a bloody house.
The shoemaker goes barefoot, pretty much.
That's it. And then all of it. And what the other crazy thing is, all these groups who oppose us or speak about it, like the rally against us, which we've got a big rally this Saturday, it will be exclusively white. They don't experience diversity. They don't live amongst it. Well, we do. Like, I've got more diverse friendship group than any of these people who oppose me. Yet here, I'm labelled as the racist and the Nazi. It's like, you lot are exclusively middle class. You're exclusively white. Yet you're screaming at us that we're the racists. So it's it's been a fascinating experience to watch and learn. Do you know, I started my activism. I wasn't political at all. I didn't care. Like most people from my background, as in working class, I didn't care about politics. Not rich enough and not poor enough to actually care.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Didn't see it making a difference. Didn't know about left wing, right wing. Didn't know about the media. I got a right shock very early on with the media. I couldn't believe it. I turned up to a meeting with two of my mates who are both black, yeah, with The Guardian. I didn't know what The Guardian were. I just thought, meet the media. Their job is to tell the truth. We'll turn up, put our side across, tell them that we're upset about the rapes, about the gangs, about the heroin, about all the problems coming from this Islamic community. Turn up with two black lads. Waited for all of us sat there as friends talking. Waited for the article to come out. They just portrayed me as a white supremacist. It's like, well, what the hell's going on? I just got a total shock. And then I learned very quickly just that the media aren't there to report the truth. I used to think their job was to give the public the truth.
They're there to push a narrative.
It was a shock. The country I grew up living in, which I thought was the land of freedom and democracy and civil rights, I very quickly realised that it's not the country I live in, that we don't have free speech. We don't have these rights. You try and exercise them, you see what happens. And that's not just, obviously I spoke against mass immigration. And for all these years, people celebrated me being deplatformed. They celebrated me being attacked. But as we went on, the goalposts have continually shifted. So people, if you oppose me, if you're one of the people who don't like what I stand for, you may find yourself on the right side of free speech now. But they keep shifting. So when COVID happened, doctors and nurses were then getting deplatformed. They're losing their jobs. They're facing censorship. Now you've got J.K. Rowling is now a figure of hate, like, because she tells the truth about men and women. So the goalposts shift, and it's about you challenge that status quo or the mass, the corporations and the government's narrative. They will come down you like a ton of bricks. They will destroy you, attack you, defame you, slander you, imprison you, bankrupt you. And it's the same. It's been the same all over. So as I said, I've gone through. I feel like I've done my apprenticeship. You've just sat, as we've had a meeting with the police, I've done 80 national demonstrations. I know what they done on January 6th in America. I've seen the infiltration of these street protest movements. I lived it with the English Defence League. I know government agencies come in. We have now done, I know how to stop that now, and that is to police yourselves and don't allow face coverings, because undercover police officers or agents can't come in and set fires or smash things up, because someone will know them, their neighbours will know them. He's a police officer. Yeah. So every demonstration, usually they would be head to toe, totally black. You wouldn't see their skin. Yeah, and they are government agents. There's an organisation in the UK called they've had to get rid of it now, called the Special Demonstration Squad. Google it. Their job was to infiltrate legitimate protests and provoke chaos. So it's like, and I realise now.
What would the goal behind it be?
They take away your legitimate reasons for protesting that the government do not want the public hearing. And they'd come in, they'd provoke violence, and then we live in a totalitarian state. I accept that now. What are the weapons of a totalitarian state? The media are one of the weapons, yeah? So they'll come in, provoke violence, and the media will be here to take pictures of the violence. So then they'd use every media from the top to the bottom to filter that across the whole population, far right, racist, and show images that they've handpicked to portray an image to the public of who these people are. That then takes away any legitimacy of the problems they're talking about. And if you want the best example of this, Southport, children are butchered, they're murdered by Axel Rudicabana, a Welsh choir boy, according to our government and media, yeah, but butchers and murders them, and then the mass from the top, from the police, they blamed the English Defence League after this. There were riots in Southport, trouble. Locals took to the streets in anger about what had happened. They knew they were being lied to. At the time, so that day after arresting Axel Rudakabana, the police found an Al-Qaeda manual under his pillow, and they found ricin, but they didn't tell anyone that. Yeah, they kept it a secret for months and months and months and months. They hid it from the public. They then started drip feeding and controlling what the public could know. The problem for them is the public knew they were being lied to. So they didn't trust. No one trusts the government now. We don't trust the police. Now, at the same time as that, when the riots kicked off and trouble kicked off in Southport, the police chief come out and said the English Defence League. Now, that's the organisation I formed up in Luton. We went for 5 years and I ended it in 2015. So a decade, there's been no English Defence League. So when the riots are kicking off in Southport and I see them blaming the English Defence League, I knew straight away, here we go. Yeah. And what it's successfully done for the government is people took to the streets in towns and cities across the UK in total anger and in desperation at what's happening. Now, example, they took to the streets in Tamworth outside a hotel. What the government don't want you to know is that Mohammed left the hotel and raped an English woman. They took to the streets in Hull. What they don't want you to know is that one of the migrants left the hotel on behalf of Palestine and butchered a British grandfather to death in a terrorist attack. What they don't want you to know is in Skegness that another Muslim left the hotel and raped another woman. They don't want you to know that 25 children have been sexually abused by the migrants in the hotels and 9 British women have been raped just by the men in the hotels. So rather than have that discussion, and if you could have that discussion, the public could have this debate about why people are angry, it's down to government policy failure. So rather than do that, what they did is Keir Starmer comes out, says far right 1,000 times. The media pump far right. They used me as a scapegoat to blame.
They turn you into the enemy.
They turn us into the enemy, which then means they don't have to have any discussion. They politicise the courts, they weaponise the media, and then they get rid of the problem. Yeah, and then in the end, no one's even talking about the 3 children who have been butchered to death and the 7 that have been fatally stabbed all over their bodies, horrifically damaged for the rest of their lives. No one's talking about that because the government and the media are just pumping far-right racist to try and delegitimise, that's the reason they do it, the concerns of the British public. Now, were they successful? What they've done is people were at a demonstration on Saturday and they were sentenced to prison by the Monday. Yeah? And what they did is they remanded everyone and they televised it. Now this again is the weapons of a totalitarian state. They showed the public, which is exactly the same as January 6th. They allowed January 6th to happen. Nancy Pelosi stands down, doesn't want the National Guard, open the doors, literally invite everyone in. They set it up. And they set it up because then they come down hard, lock everyone on solitary confinement, give them massive prison sentences. That installs fear. That sends a message to the American population. Don't protest. Be too scared to protest. Don't stand up. Even if we're robbing your election and stealing it, sit down and shut up. Well, like they done that on January 6th, in our country, our moment of that was after Southport, where we were basically, they locked a woman up, Lucy Connolly, a British mum, never been in trouble with the police before. She put a tweet up. She got 31 months in prison. A tweet that she deleted after 2 hours.
What was the tweet?
She was on about the migrants in the hotel, and she was said, enough is enough. Children are being murdered. I think it was inflammatory, what she said, and it was insightful, what she said, but she deleted it after 2 hours, apologised.
How was it inflammatory to point out the
no,
obvious?
She didn't point out. She said that the hotel, if I'm right, I'd have to check. I think she said that the hotel should be burned. Yeah, the hotels holding these rapists or killers should be burned. I'm pretty sure that's what she said. And then she made a statement 2 hours later and said, I'm sorry, I apologise. No one took that statement and acted on it. No one at that point from when she said it. Yeah, she got 31 months in jail. Another lad who chanted, "You're not English anymore," got sent to prison. Another lad who shouted, Allah, Allah, who the fuck is Allah, got 2 years in prison. Peter Lynch, a grandfather who went out on the street and stood up to the police with a sign about the government, he said, I pray for my children. He got years in prison. He then, and what's just happened to Charlie Kirk? Keir Starmer told the whole country that anyone protesting was far-right, racist English Defence League, which they weren't. Like Peter Lynch has never been in trouble in his life. He's a grandfather. So then when they got fed to the prison system, when they got remanded, all the Muslim gangs were terrorising them, beating them. Peter Lynch was that scared, he hung himself. He killed himself. So he was murdered, basically, by the state. He didn't commit any violent crime. He got years in jail for attending a protest. Now, the purpose of this was to, again, quell what would be described as an uprising in the country. Why was there an uprising? Because the British public realised we don't have safety, our kids aren't safe, our daughters can't walk the streets, the rapes. Do you know in 2003 there was 8,000 rapes in the UK? In 2023 there was 88,000. 88,000. From 8,000 in 2003 to 88,000 in 2023. That increase over a 20-year period. If you want to draw a graph, Islamic immigration, the graph for the rapes.
Who are the perpetrators?
Muslims, per se, the majority.
How would they justify it?
How would they justify?
How would they justify the rapes? What would they say?
Well, I've done a presentation called The Rape of Britain. I've done a 5-part series. You can watch my documentaries at trfilms.co.uk. But I've done a five-part series where I investigated the rape gangs, which is what we were trying to uncover. Successfully uncovered now, but what we were trying to uncover to the British public was that our daughters are being sacrificed in every town and city. They're being tortured, they're being raped. I went to a town called Telford. I spent 12 to 18 months getting to know the survivors of these gangs. So I'd sit down with the women, I'd interview them for 3 hours, 4 hours, sometimes 3 times, sometimes 4 times, and I'd build a database of what they said. And when we had 3 girls that didn't know each other, that would then name the man who trafficked and abused them.
The same man,
they become a star of the documentary. Yeah, we go after them. We go into their businesses, we track them down, we find them, we question them, and we tell the survivor girl story. So in these stories, for example, in our first episode, we have a young girl who's 12. She's raped. She gets pregnant. They get 100% DNA match for the...
She gets pregnant when she's 12.
When she's 12, yeah. She has an abortion, but they get 100%. The police get 100% DNA match for the father from the rape. The father from the rape is a 22-year-old Pakistani man who was prostituting her, who drives a Lamborghini, who's a drug dealer. Yeah. So they get a match. No further action. Doesn't get prosecuted. Now in Telford, so you can understand the scale of the problem. Yeah, Telford has a 1.7% Muslim population. That's all, which is why I went there. Because I went there because I thought I'll find out everything I need to know about every one of them in this town. Mm-hmm. Yeah? So and I built a database and I got 254 names of the rapists. Now the police done an investigation in Telford. Obviously, we went there with the English Defence League 2010, 2014. The police actually start arresting and making criminal prosecutions. Now, the police investigation identified 200 perpetrators, 200 rapists from the Islamic community in Telford, and they identified 1,000 victims. 5 are dead. They burned a child alive. Just in this one small town in England, small little town, there's 3,000 Muslims in that town. So when you take away the women, roughly 3,000, when you take away the women and the children, you've got 1,000 Muslim men who fit the age bracket that can be involved in these rapes. Well, out of that 1,000 men, the police identified 200 that were raping.
20% of the men.
We identified 254. We only spoke to 12, 18 girls in between there. There's 1,000 girls. Yeah. The independent inquiry, which was then launched without statutory power would have meant that the police could be summoned and the government officials could be summoned to tell the truth on oath, and if they don't, they can get prison. Well, that was blocked by the Labour Party and by the government, so then no one has to get prosecuted. So they block it, but an independent inquiry by a solicitor's legal firm identified over 300 rapists. So if we just take those figures, 20 to 30% of the Muslim men in that town were raping kids. And only out of the 200 identified by the police, 11 face prosecution. Now, when we do our 5-part series, we speak to the girl, Nicole, who tells her story, impregnated at 12. There's 100% DNA match. No prosecution. We then speak to Corrine. She's another girl we spoke to, was a girl called Corrine. Now, Corrine was impregnated at 14. She has the child now. So it's not hard. 1 of 6 rapists are the father. All they have to do is take the DNA of those 6 men who are all men. She was a child, and they will identify who the dad is, and then they can have a conviction for rape. They won't do it. So 200 men, they prosecuted 11. That's Telford. You've probably heard of Rotherham.
Yes.
Rotherham only has a 3.7% Muslim population. Out of that 3.7% Muslim population in Rotherham, there's 1,400 children been identified in a 16-year period who were prostituted, raped and abused. And some of the crimes are horrific. So when we talk about why the men were doing it, Muslims, as we said earlier, make up 6% of the UK population. So let's half it, 3% are male. Yeah? So out of 3% of this country, 90% of the convictions of groups of men who rape children are Muslim. 90% from 3%. 30% of the men convicted are called Mohammed. 30% of the men convicted of child rape in gangs, their name is Mohammed. Why? Which is the question you're not allowed to ask. So first of all, we identified the problem, and we've shifted because we went from no problem to accepting a problem to calling them Asian. Like the police, the council, the government, everyone would then when they had to address it, they'd say Asian. It's like, oh, they're not Asian, are they? They're Muslim. And we know they're not Asian because bracketed under Asian in the UK, different to America, would be Hindus, Sikhs and Muslims. Well, the Hindus are victims of these gangs. So are the Sikhs. The Sikhs aren't raping kids. Mm-hmm. The Hindus aren't raping kids. And then I went through the cases and I dug up what the men said in the court cases. So I went through lots of court documents and said, let's see what the men are actually saying. And in some of the cases, they're literally quoting verses from the Quran whilst raping the children. They're telling them it's because they're dirty kafar. They're calling them gullah slag, white slag. So these crimes, one of the men said it was his religious duty to do this. Yeah? That's what one of the Somalians stood up and said. But everyone wants to hide this. So when we focused on it, obviously you get the usual labels, Islamophobic. Yeah? It's not an irrational fear.
What a stupid term, huh? I get accused being an Islamophobe 24/7, and I say exactly what you say all the time. But it's not irrational to fear 46,000 attacks since 9/11 committed in 70 different countries by Muslims on behalf of Islam. It's not irrational to fear that. I 100% agree.
Do you know how many terrorists on a terror watch list in the UK? 40,000 Muslims. We've only got 70,000 armed forces. 40,000 Muslims on a terror watch list. 3,000 of those Muslims are monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, costing £9 billion a year to the economy. Now, that's these sort of figures. When the Muslim community makes up 1% of the UK, 2%, then these sort of problems, they can be dealt with. When it becomes 5%, 6%, and let's look at the demographical change in the UK, that 6% is going to become 12%, it's going to become 20%. How do you deal with it then? Because then you've got an army, which we have got an army. So all of these problems, when you try and address them and talk about them, you've been silenced and attacked and the reason being, which Americans really need to wake up and understand. I first went to America in 2010. I was imprisoned after this for it. I went to give a warning to America because I wish someone come to my town 40 years ago and said, here's what they're going to do, Joe. I'm not talking about things I've read, as I said. And the Democrat Party are the Labour Party of the UK. They have imported, over the 4-year period of Biden being in, you've hopefully been saved, but 8 million voters. Americans, I've watched a discussion for years about Hispanic or Mexican immigration. And I know it's a problem, mass immigration, but I wish we had Mexican immigration instead of the Islamic immigration. So I don't think people quite understand the cultural difference and the religious difference and the hostility and violence that you've imported. So since the mass opening of your borders under Biden, it's Somalis, it's Pakistanis, it's Afghanis, it's Syrians, it's Iraqis. You have no idea what's coming. I'm telling you, you've got no idea. And you know, I don't think you'll understand the power they will hold over the Democrat Party. Because once they're in, and I'll explain it, 2013, I'm in Luton, my hometown, and I looked at the demographical projected growth forecast for the different communities by 2030. So in a 17-year period, the Pakistani and Bangladeshi community was going to increase by 70 to 77%. The white and black by 1.3.
In 5 years?
In a 17-year period.
17.
2013 to 2030, the growth figures, and I looked through all the wards of Luton, the different areas, to see how bad's the problem going to be. Because the problem's bad when the Muslim community is where it's at now. Yeah, the rapes, the hostility, the violence. So what's the future look like for my hometown? For my 3 children growing up in this town, what's it going to look like? So I looked, and the projected growth forecast was that the Pakistani and Bangladeshi community would increase by 70 to 77%. The white and black by 1.3 to 1.4. So if you're the government or you're the council, where is the future? They know where it is. It's not with us. Yeah? You don't matter anymore, white Englishman, straight white Englishman. You're gone. Yeah, the future of this town is Islamic, but and Luton is a blueprint for all the other towns and cities. The birth rate of the Islamic community, and this will happen. I don't think people understand. It's like that. It's like, what the hell's happened? Right? That's what it's like when you're growing up and you're getting on with your life and you mind your own business. And 5 years pass, 10 years pass, and you look at your community. It's like, what's happened?
Mm-hmm.
The whole junior school is Muslim. The whole school. Now, why is that a problem? Because if the whole school was Sikh, yeah, there's not much of a problem. Yeah, I do believe that in Great Britain we have to remain a majority English country.
I agree.
Or it ceases to be England.
I agree.
And now, none of the other birth rates from any of the other communities that have come here, migrants have come to this country, they've loved it and embraced it, just like the United States of America. Yeah, they've benefited it. It's worked. Yeah, in small numbers. Yeah, it works. In fact, all these discussions around immigration, they wouldn't be being had if there was no Islamic immigration. We wouldn't even be having a debate. We'd have had no jihad, no terrorism, no mass rapes. We'd have had none of these problems. Yeah, because none of the other communities bring shit with them. They don't try and dominate, take over. They don't try and promote hate. It's a whole different ball game. You're mixing oil and water. And to tell the truth about it, look, I'm not saying every Muslim's bad, because they're not. I've grown up in Luton. There's some beautiful people. Yeah, but they're not beautiful people because they follow Islam. They're beautiful people because they don't follow Islam. They're just born culturally Islamic. They're born into a Muslim family. They don't follow all the bad bits, but they still defend it when you try and talk about it. You try and talk, and we have to talk about it. If there's 4 million Muslims in this country now who wish to emulate the Prophet Muhammad, and when we start looking at the life of the Prophet Muhammad and we realise that he raped, pillaged and murdered, beheaded 600 Jews in one day, raped Sophia, the leader of the Jewish tribe's wife, that night, married Aisha at 6 and raped her when she was 9, well, this man ain't perfect, guys. It's like a bit of a reality check here. We cannot allow this. And so, do you know, like, I've got my books here, so I'll plug them. My books here, but look, it's the topic of conversation. These 3 are banned on Amazon. You can't buy them.
Show them.
You can't buy them, yeah? That's just a biography about my life, yeah? The second one. That's my first one, but that's the second one. This one is Manifesto, talking about the fact we don't have democracy. It's all a facade. It's all bullshit. By 2041, we've gone through the figures. White, British are a minority in Britain. Okay, it's too late then. So we've run out of time. We are at a pivotal stage. We're going to see what happens this Saturday. We're at breaking point. We are at that moment now. Now, this one is Muhammad's Quran, Why Muslims Kill for Islam. This is taking the Quran and putting it in chronological order. Now,
it wasn't written in chronological order, right? It was written from the longest chapter to the shortest?
Yeah, but originally it was in chronological order. So when Winston Churchill read the Quran in the 30s and 40s, and when Gladstone read the Quran, it was. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not now. So you try and find one in chronological order, you can't. Because like any great war manual, it's encrypted. Yeah, has to be taught. But why is it important of putting this book in chronological order? Because what Muhammad says earlier in his life, we have abrogation in Islam compared to what he says later in his life. What he says later in his life, if there's 2 contradictory verses, then what he says later in his life supersedes what he says earlier.
Correct.
Now, in Muhammad's first 10 years of preaching, he was a pretty peaceful bloke. Yeah.
He barely converted any people.
He had 300 followers, didn't he?
In 10 years, 13 years.
Yeah. He had 300 followers, right? And then he found the winning formula. What was the winning formula? It's what they're doing in prisons now. It was going out to all the people who have been outcast out of the community because they were criminals, thieves, rapists, barbarians, and saying to them, right, God's come to me. We're going to go rape that village there. You can take all the gold, lads. Take all, everything you take is halal. It's war booty. God wants you to take it. We're at war. Go rape them. Take the women. So that's what Muhammad did. Yeah? And he found a women formula, and it worked. And so what he says later in his life, all the verses of hate and war and murder, they supersede the early ones. So what we've done in here is, yes, there are peaceful verses like this one here, yeah. But be patient, Muhammad, with patience fair to see. And then it just says, cancelled by Surah 9.5. Yeah? Because the peaceful ones are cancelled. So then you'll turn to Surah 9.5 and you'll read what Surah 9.5 says, where it says, basically, convert, pay the jizya, or we kill you. Yeah. So there are 4 verses in this book which tell Muslims specifically, and people need to wake up to it, because this is the reason that 90% of the grooming gang convictions are Muslim. 4 verses that say, outside your 4 wives, you can take whatever your right arm possesses, the arm of the sword. It actually says you're blameless. You can go and rape women and you're blameless. And that is why Boko Haram take women and tell you Muhammad commanded them to do it. It's why ISIS took the Yazidi it's all relevant, and it's all we have to understand it. But as I said, these are banned. You can't buy them. You can buy Hitler's book in 20 different languages on Amazon. But you can't buy Tommy Robinson's autobiography. I've never been convicted. I've never killed anyone. I've only ever called for peace. I just tell the truth about Islam. And the truth based on, not my opinion, on their scripture, on their life of their prophet, of what that man was like. He was a barbarian. He was a warlord. He was a paedophile. He was all those things. And we have to understand that because people think Jesus and Muhammad are quite similar. Well, no, Jesus said turn the other cheek and Muhammad cut your head off. And that's what we see. If you can't see the problem. Now, you know else? This book, the Quran, Mein Kampf, Hitler's book, is 7% Jew hatred. This is 11%. Okay? One's banned and one is taught and promoted in every single country in Europe and pushed. And that is why. So when we go, I talk here about Israel, it's like, take Israel out of the equation, take the land argument, get rid of it. Muslims still hate the Jews, man, because it's embedded in there. And you know what? This was, I had the wake up moment, Sahar. When I was in jail, I was doing 22 weeks in solitary confinement in 2011. So I had a lot of time on my hands. Yeah.
They put you in solitary confinement for your safety, or
not in 2011? They just put, I think, to mentally break me. At the time, I was leading the English Defence League. We were the biggest protest movement in Europe, and we were bringing to light problems of rape gangs, problems that would humiliate and embarrass our governments. So a Muslim outreach group sent me in the Quran. Now, I knew the problems in my hometown were to do with this group and that group, and Pakistani groups were different, but I hadn't really gone to town on the Islamic ideology or the teachings of Muhammad. So someone sent me in this book, a Muslim outreach, trying to convert me. So I thought, right, let me take this book, which I ask any of you to do. Go get a Quran, any Quran, yeah? And open the book and burn it. No, I'm only joking. open the book. Yeah? Open the book. And when you open the book, every time you read a verse that says, do not be friends with Christians or Jews, just write down the verse number, which is what I'd done. So I'd put different sections to try and dissect it. And I very quickly found out, well, it's hard to make sense of this because you can't make sense of it because it doesn't make sense. Muhammad said one thing here, said something 20 years later, and the two verses are after each other. You can't read it. You can't. Yeah. So we've made it so you can. I made it very easy for you to understand what this book is. Yeah. But so when I opened up, I thought, well, there's a verse number. Do not be friends with Christians or Jews. Within 20 minutes, 30 minutes, I had pages full of references of not being friends with Christians or Jews. And it was like a jigsaw. It was like the final bit just went in the puzzle for me. Because I just went, oh my God, man. It's this. The Muslim playground, the non-Muslim playground. The non-integration, the non-assimilation. Now, if I bring my children up, and all of us who are white, taught our kids from this high, do not be friends with black people, okay? They're going to burn in hellfire. You're superior to them. They are cattle. All the things that this book says. 70% of it talks about how we should be treated, pretty much, yeah? So we need to understand it, because as they become dominant, we're going to get treated this way, yeah? As Christians and Jews are treated, or Sikhs and Hindus are treated, in any Islamic-dominated nation, yeah? So we need to get it. So if we taught our kids that, then that intolerance is going to spread to violence. You're going to see it. But it all just come together for me. I was like, wow, I get it now. It's this. It's Islam. And then again, it's like when you're on a rabbit hole, I just don't stop digging. So I've continued to dig, understand. That's Muhammad's Quran. You can get that at trbooks.co. That went to #1 best-selling book. So the #1 best-selling book on Amazon in the UK was Muhammad's Quran by Tommy Robinson.
But it was banned.
Yeah, they banned it. It went. Yeah, we like each one of these. Yeah, I released them. Went to #1. Banned. But it takes them a few weeks to. So I don't say anything. I just release the book, get it to #1, and then they ban it.
Isn't that a good selling point? Honestly, if it's about to get banned,
then you can't find it. So then the public ability to find it, you'd have to know my website to come to because it's not for sale anywhere other than on trbooks.co.uk. You can't buy it. This one's gone to #1 4 times. Yeah, on Amazon. This one's still on Amazon, but the rest of them have been banned. They're literally burning books.
This one you can get at urbanscoop.uk?
Yeah, well, TR Books, you can get all of them. trbooks.co.uk will bring you to access to buy all 4 of them. This is Manifesto. This looks at the reality. Do you know what else? So, you see on the front of that, let's read the quote from Boris Johnson, our Prime Minister. Right? Before Boris Johnson became Prime Minister and before any terrorist attacks in the UK, Boris Johnson wrote a book, yeah? And this is from his book, okay? Remember what it says in the Holy Quran, slay the unbelievers wherever you find them. We will perform jihad against the kuffar, the unbelievers. That's a quote from him. So he knows what Islam is. They all know. When they've imported Islamic immigration into our country, they know what's coming. They know what they're doing. They're opening their border to the Islamic world. They know is going to bring hostility, violence and chaos. And right now, their solution to the chaos that they've imported, so they've created the problem. They've broke down our communities. Remember the European Union, the United Nations, all these World Economic Forum. They don't want borders and they do not want nationalism or identity. Because if you have your nationalism and your identity and you know who you are, you're not going to bow down. I know who I am as an Englishman and I'm going to fight for England. Yeah. If I don't know who I am and I have no pride in England and I don't care, you're not going to be willing to fight for it. Yeah. So as they break down, they don't want the identity of German, France. They just want the European identity for their European Union plan or the world identity. So how do they get there? How do you bring down the most strong culture and identity of Great Britain? Well, you attack the church. You weaken it. You feminise the men. You teach from this high that they should be ashamed of who they are. And then you flood it with other cultures. And those other cultures become dominant. And then you have a lost population, which is basically what we've had for 20 years now. Loss of identity, loss of culture, loss of belief. Because when you remove the Christian belief, you leave a void that can be filled. And what's filled it? LGBTQ+, the alphabet mafia, communism, Marxism, every other idea that wishes to bring the destruction of what made this country great, our government and politicians bend their knee to celebrate. Islam. Like all these things come together and fill the void. So I believe we are entering now a time of cultural revolution. That's what's happening. And that's happening because the public are now awake to things they weren't. They didn't realise how bad the problem is. They're now realising it. They're understanding the loss of their country. The future of our country is at stake. The future of even our identity is at stake. And all of this is intentional. And do you know what the government are currently doing now? Well, they've created the problem with mass immigration. Yeah, all the governments have, yeah? As they flood the nations, intentionally flood the nations. Now they're bringing in a solution, which is ID cards. They're now saying, well, we'll bring on... So they flood it, they make it that violent, because violence has gone up, terrorism's gone up, jihad's gone up, murder's gone up, rape's gone up. So the public are sitting there scared. And then everyone's crying out, we need more law and order. We need you, the government, to help us. Yeah, that's what they've created. So as everyone asks, they then step in. Right, what we'll do is, all need ID cards. We want to track every second of your lives, because then we can track the migrants. Then these dangerous people that we've invited in and brought in, we then know who they are. But it's not about who they are. It's about who you are and what movements you make and what you say. And the perfect example of this is terrorism legislation. Due to jihad and attacks, every time there's a jihadist attack or a terrorism offence or case, a big one, they quickly flood in new laws without much debate, because everyone's like, well, we need your help. Now, one of those laws they brought in was Article 7 of the Terrorism Act. Now, Article 7 of the Terrorism Act means that when you're going through a border of an airport in the UK or leaving at a port, they have legislation which means they can detain you under the Terrorism Act without any offence. And it takes away your right to remain silent. And for 6 hours they're allowed to interview you. And it means they have full access to these. Yeah? You can't say no. Now, 2 years ago, with all the problems that were going on, I'm a journalist. I've made 10 amazing investigative feature-length films that have humiliated the BBC, humiliated the government. Yeah? They don't like it. I'm an uncontrollable journalist. Yeah?
That's why people like you.
That's it. And that is what citizen journalism is. That's what these podcasts are, like yours.
Mm-hmm.
They can't control us. Yeah? We don't want your government funding we don't want Big Pharma to pay us all this money like they do the media. They control everything. Yeah. So as they do this, I become a journalist. We sat down. This is our organisation. It's called Unite the Kingdom. And the idea was, about 2 years ago, I organised a meeting and brought together influencers, whether you want to call them that, citizen journalists, podcasters. And we had a meeting and we sat down and said, right, 20 of us, I'll say 20, Katie Hopkins, Lawrence Fox, Cole Benjamin, Maya Tusi, all conservative voices that have been silenced, gagged, attacked, slandered. I said, right, And this has all come back because Elon Musk has given us back a platform for free speech. So we've got our voices back after being censored and ignored and silenced and invisible for 5 years. So we sat down and said, British culture's at risk here. Identity's at risk. Free speech is disappearing. Sexual exploitation of our minors. Indoctrination through the education system. Let's agree on some principles. We don't have to agree on everything, because when you get a lot of characters together, we're not going to, if we talked about every one of our views, we'll differ on some things. Yeah? Forget the things we differ on. Let's find the things we agree on. And they're basic points that are at risk in this country, that are being taken from us. So we sat down and we had this meeting, and Jordan Peterson flew in, because he's got ARC, yeah, which is sort of like a cultural revolutionary movement, I believe. But a cultural revolution doesn't start here. It can't. It starts here, yeah? At the bottom. We are the bottom. Yeah, we are the working class. We are the backbone of Great Britain, and it's us who are affected by these problems. So we had the plan and the vision that we bring all these people together and we agree to come together under one unity banner, Unite the Kingdom. We bring everyone together to challenge these issues. And we do that and politically we need a revolution, but if you change the culture, you change the politics anyway, which was our goal. Change the culture. Yeah, people are converting to Islam because it's cool to become Muslim, because it's celebrated by all the media, by everyone. They're waving Palestinian flags.
You're also protected by that group.
You're protected by the group, and you're protected from any criticism. Yeah, and it's celebrated. Whereas being British isn't celebrated. So we need to, as a movement, make it cool to be British again. We need to show pride in Britain again, which is I sit here now thinking, it's been a total success. We're 2 years in, yeah? And every time they've tried to crush it, like they done after the Southport riots, there was an uprising, they tried to crush it. So they locked up women, locked up grandfathers, and that was meant to put fear into the British public. It didn't put fear into us, it ignited us. It's ignited the British public. And they've seen, only thanks to Elon Musk, because if there wasn't X, we wouldn't have been able to reach the public to show them it. So this has all developed over the last 2 years. I've been in prison for 18 months. When they done that, I made a film. 167 million people watched the film. They know I told the truth. They know the government locked me up for telling the truth. They know the lengths the government went to if you watch the film. They know what's happened, yeah? So all this has gone on. Something huge is happening. We went from 30,000 to 100,000 to 150,000. We're now about to march in what I believe is the biggest show of power this country's seen by the people. It's going to send fear into the establishment, who have wanted to break community spirit, break identity, and certainly break culture and break pride. And you're going to see the most about pride and passion marching through London this Saturday.
I have a question about this specifically. So the establishment, you always talk about the establishment. So I just want to get this straight. The reason why the establishment is fearing people like you, exposing the truth, is because they are scared that people will see the failure of bringing mass immigration into the UK?
It's their policies. They've intentionally done it. So the rape rates, the criminal rates, the violence, anything you want to talk about, the easiest thing to them to do is shut you down from talking about it. Because if you can review and look at what they've done, for example, what can I say on this? The case I was sent to jail for the documentary was to do with one refugee out of 20,000 that the government, Conservative government, brought into the country. Forget the fake refugees coming on boats. The Conservative government, at the height of ISIS battle in Syria, against the wishes of the public, imported 20,000. Yeah? One of them, they wouldn't allow the story to be told. Because if you could know the story of this, whose fault is this problem? It's not the child's fault. It's not the Syrian family's fault. Yeah? It's not their fault. It's the government's fault. Against the wishes of the public. Now, mass immigration, if you look at the voting patterns of the public and the opinion polls, we've wanted it ended for decades and decades. But they don't. They continually rise it every year. So they're working against the interests of the British public. They're not putting British people first. Everyone now knows that. Everyone can see it. So that is the reason for covering it up. And all of these, the Labour Party, the mad thing is, the Conservative Party, they're the same. They just handed the baton over. Our last election, they just went, hey guys, your turn. Your turn to fuck the British public. Right? Your turn to care more about Afghanistan or Somalia or Iraq than you do against British children.
Why do they keep voting for them? Why do they keep getting elected?
9 million people voted for Keir Starmer. 9 million. Yeah? 20 million people didn't vote. The man doesn't have a mandate. Yeah? We've got a 65, 70 million population. He was voted in on 9 million people. Now, why? Because we've become disillusioned. We've become neglected, forgotten, and took ourselves out, which is where they want you. not caring about politics, not voting, that is the working class. Yeah, that is the working class. Now, what our goal was, have a cultural movement, which was the goal, was to reach the 20 million and to electrify that 20 million. And we've got 3 years to give them identity, give them purpose, give them belief in who they are, yeah, and reach them. And if we can, we become a powerhouse for politics.
All of them will go to vote, and
they'll go to vote for who we want them to vote for. We didn't have to be involved in politics here. Yeah, there's 3 major political parties. They all sit down with the Muslim community. Nigel Farage is doing it now. Yeah, he's reaching out to the Muslim community as Reform, and he's actually given an interview where he says by 2050 the Islamic demographic is that strong in this country, we can't alienate them. Now, if as a leader of a political party, if you're not willing to alienate an ideology, then that means you're willing to submit and surrender to it, because you're not going to tell the truth about it, which he doesn't. Anyone now in Reform who tells the truth about Islam is losing their position and they're getting gagging orders. They're not allowed to talk about these issues. Now, we can't have that. But what the Muslim community do is, I listen to Cage, or was it Mend? Mend, an Islamic radical jihadist Islamist group, yeah? I got the transcribes from what they're talking in a mosque. Now, they share platforms with the Labour Party, with all of them. And in the mosque, he said, we now swing the seats. We, as the Muslim community, in these 10 areas, swing the seats. Don't be worried. Don't worry. Labour, Lib Dems and Conservatives will all sit down and work with us. These are radicals, because we can give them power. Yeah. Now, I've watched all this, learned from it. I've looked at the Muslim bloc vote and thought, well, we're copying them, really. What they're doing, that's what we need to do as a cultural movement. And we need to shift the politics and watch as all the politicians try to ride the wave. Now, that's exactly what's happened. We've shifted the politics. We've give back identity, celebrated identity. I don't know if you've watched Raise the Flags campaign. There is a tidal wave of patriotism that is sweeping across this country. You could have drove 6 weeks ago from one end of Britain to the other and you wouldn't have seen one single patriotic or national flag. You can't drive down the road now. Yeah,
I've been seeing videos of Charlie Veitch recently. I've been watching his stuff.
He's hilarious, isn't he?
Hilarious. And you see him walking, around Manchester. You see one British flag, and then all the other flags you see are Palestinian flags. Yeah. Bizarre.
But that's changing. I think that's changed forever now.
I saw a video 5 days ago.
Okay. Well, what I mean is it's changed is we're in London. London's a different country to the rest of the UK. But you come to the towns and cities now, you can't go down the road without seeing just British flags everywhere and English flags everywhere. There is something huge happening where the silent majority, which is what people have always talked about, who have been silent, thought a certain way, they're not going to be silent no more. I can see something massive happening. I can see a rebellion that I'd say the Great British Revolt. You had the Peasants' Revolt. Something big is underway, and I can feel it, sense it. I think anyone who comes to London this weekend is going to see it. The world's going to see it this weekend. And it's been a long time coming they've managed to intimidate us into silence, to paralyse our ability to rise up, to have people so scared. It's quite embarrassing, really. I think the British men are known throughout history as the toughest men. It's in our DNA to fight tyranny. It's who we are. And we bred a generation of men that were too scared to talk about issues because they might be called a name. When you say it out loud, it's fucking mental. It's insane. We knew that no one knows, anyone who looking in our towns and cities, no one can say our country's going in the right direction. Mass immigration's not benefiting us. Open borders doesn't benefit us. It's not going to benefit your kids. They're taking the safety. They're taking the ability to succeed. It's all coming. They're coming for you. They're coming for your money. They're coming for your wealth. They're coming for your ability to succeed. They're coming for it. And they want all of us down here as the corporations are here. And that's what we're witnessing. And I'd say there's already been a globalist revolution, and it's been going on for 20 years. The breakdown of borders, breakdown of the family. This is a revolution for globalist power. What we are now is the counter-revolution to that is trying to take it back. And it's not going to be easy. But what started now, I don't see them being able to stop it.
Have you heard about the term hijra? Do you know what the hijra is?
Go on.
When Muhammad migrated from Mecca.
Yep, to bring Islam around the world, which is what many. So you have this discussion, but it's what many people don't understand. Yeah, it's part of Islamic belief. It's part of jihad, is to bring Islam
to non-Muslim places.
House of war, house of God.
Dar el-Harb and Dar el-Islam.
We are the house of war. Until we become the house of God, and we become the house of God when we are dominated by Islam and Sharia. And when you're the house of war, the verses in here that say you can rape non-Muslim women become halal. Yeah, that's it.
Just to remind people, the viewers, the last Islamic caliphate was abolished in 1924 by Ataturk in Turkey because he wanted to promote secularism in Turkey. And right now, that means that the Muslim population is homeless. They have no home. They have no place to live. So right now, they're in a state of war, in a state for promoting the Dar el-Harb. And until the world becomes Muslim again, or Muslim dominated, because they can't stand that the Jews control the Muslims in Israel, they can't stand that the Christians control the Muslims in Al-Andalus in Spain, they can't stand it.
Oh no, because once it's become theirs once.
That's it.
So Spain's Islamic. Doesn't matter that Spain took it back.
That's it.
It's Islamic, which means forever that's their land. So you know when you hear them talking about Israel as being their land, yeah, Spain's their land as well. Yeah, so it's the world, the world dominates. So it doesn't stop. But most people don't understand these terms or the history of Islam, because unfortunately, you've not even been able to have this discussion in the West. Because when you do, you shut down, you silence. And then the Muslim Brotherhood and Iranian proxy armies, we've got Iranian proxy armies across the West. You saw that after October 7th. You saw the power and the size of the influence they have. I always say when they say, well, Jews run the world, Jews run the media. Oh, fucking not doing a very good job, are they? Because if they control the media hates them. In fact, the whole world's turning on Israel and Jews. So they're not doing a great job.
That's exactly my argument. Every time I get accused, and then I say, don't you think it's a bit of a projection coming from a Muslim as a part of the Islamic community trying to dominate the world? Surah 933, prevail the religion over all other religions. It's in your Quran to prevail and dominate. So you tell me that I'm trying to dominate when we're 0.2% of the population living in a country the size of New Jersey, tiny. You've been to Israel.
I've been to Israel.
It's tiny.
My thing is, which if you're just a neutral on this and you don't know much about it, there's 55 Islamic countries. Why can't the Jews have one? One. That was historically theirs anyway. And then you got the hip hop. It's just, mate. But Islam, it's like, are we going to allow, through political correctness, through fear, through whatever you want to call it, are we going to allow Islam to dominate Europe? Because some people will, and they're of the mindset, well, and I was on with Russell Brand the other day. I said, Russell, should this country ever become a majority Islamic nation? He said, no. Well, we've got to stop it then, haven't we, mate? We've got to stop it. For the future security, stability and safety of non-Muslims, all of us, because when you become a minority, there's no minority rights in Islam. What do you think the minorities rights are like in Saudi Arabia or Pakistan or Syria or any of these countries?
Can anybody watching name one country in the Middle East giving better rights to Christians or Jews? There's barely any Jews left in the Middle East. More than Israel. Nobody can. No. Christians are treated nicely in Israel.
So are Muslims.
Exactly. Muslims are treated nicely in Israel, but all these surrounding countries, barely any rights. They're subjugated.
But yet they make it out like they're the oppressed. But which is one of their biggest weapons. The cry of victim and the cry of oppression. They kick the shit out of someone in a racist attack themselves, and then they cry racist, and then they become the victim. Like, after every terrorist and jihad attack, they become the victim. Like, it's like I watch it just thinking, what is going on?
By 2050, the Islamic community is supposed to be the majority, the biggest religion in the world.
Yeah, but that's only because of the rule of you can't leave or they'll kill you.
Correct.
If there was freedom within Islam and people could leave, it would collapse. It would collapse. The underground churches in Iran, the underground churches in Saudi Arabia, the underground churches, but it has to be a secret because you get killed. And you don't just get killed in Saudi Arabia or Qatar. They want to kill you here. Muslims and then you don't just, it's a difficult situation because the girl I just sat down with, Lubna, who I thought was brilliant, yeah. We're sitting in 2025 as two free people apparently, yeah, both from the same hometown, and there were things we just couldn't talk about, which I had to stand there and be very careful because I don't want to see her get killed, and she's scared, terrified. So I said, it's pretty sad that we can't just talk because you'll get murdered, probably by your own community. And that's you remember, everything you go through, or I've gone through, I've lived a pretty chaotic life, had quite a lot of problems, but I've always had the love of my family. Now, to a Muslim who's born into a Muslim family, who sits there and thinks, well, this is all bullshit, I think Muhammad's a wrong 'un. They literally can't say it. And they can't say, I'm not a Muslim, because their own family will ostracise them.
Disown you.
they'll disown you. Your community will turn it back. So again, remember, whatever I've gone through, I've always had the love of family. Now, so when I see ex-Muslims, I think they're brave, they're courageous, and they've lost more than any of us could lose. They've lost the love of their family. So that there, and there's no government-funded safe houses, protection, charities, which there should be, specifically to help. In gangs, if you're in a gang, and I'm sorry, if you can't leave, it's a gang. If you can't leave because they'll kill you, it's a gang. Yeah. So, and that's why it's ruled in the prison system, and no other religion can be used like this. Yeah, but Islam is. So that's why in gangs, there's all these different charities and things set up to help people leave these groups. Yeah, to better their life. There's nothing to help Muslims leave Islam when they need it. They need help. People who want to express freedom. So we in Britain, where people should be free, Muslims should be free, but they're not, even if they're cultural Muslims. So that's partly one of the main reasons that we have this problem. Because if they could tell the truth, many of them, I know many Muslims I grew up with who don't give a shit, who don't believe any of it. But they just say simply, well, I wouldn't be able to go to Pakistan. I'll be dead. I wouldn't be able to. If I speak out and say that, my family would disown me. I'll lose everything. That
is exactly what your book, Muhammad's Quran, taught me. Yep. In the first 13 years, when Muhammad was all peaceful, trying to get people to convert to Islam, he barely converted anybody. And then when he made Islam scary, and he was going after...
He became a warrior, and he found a way. He found a winning formula. Rape, jihad, robbery, torture, murder. And he gave it... And then he built an army and massacred and took over the world.
And he conquered 1/3 of the known world that we know today in 150 years. And then Muslims will say, oh no, they were just fighting wars that they started. Are you kidding me? How did you get to Spain? How did you get to Spain from Arabia? How did you get to West India? West India?
I asked someone to give me just one example of where Islamic communities have gone into a nation and peacefully coexisted in history without trying to overthrow it. Just give me one. Yeah. Do you know the significance of the date as well? There's a few significant points. The Battle of the Gates of Vienna in 1683 was on September the 11th. Yeah. So there would be no Christianity if it wasn't for that resistance battle. On September the 11th, the battle was on the 11th and the 12th. And on September 13th, which is our rallying cry this Saturday, is when Christianity went on the fight back. It's when it started its advance. Now also at the same time as a cultural revolution, there's a Christian revival happening in Britain. I'm telling you, you'll see it this Saturday. Something huge is happening where we've lost identity, lost culture. Now, regardless of what your beliefs are, if you actually want to believe in Jesus Christ or not, then you just have to look at what made this country the best country on the planet. It was the Bible. It was Christianity. It was the teachings of Christianity. And we've lost that. And what we see as Christianity in the West, the rainbow flags flying from bloody churches, yeah, the weakness, I'd say that the church has been infiltrated by Marxists as well to push more political ideologies than religious. I look at some of them. I look at my local priest in Luton who was against us for years. And there's something's happened because the church used to come out against us for every demonstration. Now the priests are contacting us. They want to talk to the flock. And all those years of the English Defence League, I used to think, well, we're your lost sheep. We are your lost sheep. Your churches are empty because we're here and you're not reaching us.
Yeah.
You're not even trying to reach us. But now there's a form of masculine Christianity that's growing. And Christianity wouldn't still be here all these years after all the attacks if it was weak and pathetic, as our church leaders are representing. They don't stand up for Christians. Christians are being massacred now in Nigeria. They're being massacred across the world at the hands of Islam. And our leaders are silent on it whilst crying about Gaza. The hypocrisy is insane. It's like no Jews, no news.
I want to ask you something about your family, actually. Yep. So, you've got 3 children.
Yep.
You've got a wife.
Ex-wife.
3 children. You've got a family. Aren't you worried that, first of all, something will happen to you? Because I'm sure you have a target on your back. I'm sure people are plotting to do things to you. I'm sure that's a case. If you truly care about your children, why just not leave it all and move to a different country?
Because...
France, perhaps. Maybe it's a safer country, or Canada.
The reason I do this is because I truly care about my children. And I'm a deep thinker. So I look at my kids when they were young. I look at Luton. I think this is wrong. Like, I know where we're going. and I've tried to warn about it for years. We're heading to destruction, war and chaos unless we stop it. But when it gets to destruction, war and chaos, we'll probably lose unless we stop it soon. The numbers, how many of them do you think will come out and start beheading people? I'm telling you, thousands of them will. Will you? Right. It's a total, there's an army being built in this country. So I have 3 children, and I want them to experience the same freedom and the same safety that we, our parents, probably not that I experienced because I didn't experience much, but that our forefathers and grandfathers would have experienced. And when I think about what they previously gave, it's not, when we talk about free speech, it ain't free. A whole generation sacrificed and bled. People have experienced every single feeling and emotion and pain and suffering you can ever think of in order to make sure that's a free country. And we're giving it away. We're giving it away. And I'll be honest. So, yeah, I have got children. I love them. And I've tried, with, as much as anyone else, I love them so much. But it ain't about my children. Trying to have this argument with your ex-wife is a mad situation. To sit there and say, well, it's not really about our kids, babe, because it's about the entire next generation of kids. And at some point, we have to stand up. Because I was in the position where I moved and got to a nice village. But when do you stop running? Because you're just running away from the problem. So all you people who have moved out of your hometown, you've got out of the cities are taken over now, they're all becoming Islamic, and you've moved to this nice little country village, like Epping. And now they brought them to Epping, yeah? And when do you stop running? When you're on the beach. Yeah, and then everyone's moving to Spain, many people moving across the world. There has to come a time when we stop running. There has to come a time when we actually look at English history, we look at 1,000 years of it, and we say, no, we're not running. It's our country. It's our land. And this is our land. It's our land, and the sacrifice of our forefathers have made it there, our land. Where are we meant to go? Because the Afghanis can go back to Afghanistan. The Somalians can go back to Somalia. The Pakistanis can please go back to Pakistan. Yeah? Where are we meant to go? This is our land.
Same question applies to the Jews. Where are we supposed to go?
Well, the mad thing is, as anti-Semitism, as they encourage the attacks, as attacks on schools, attacks on synagogues across Europe, they want to encourage the attacks, but they don't want a place of safety. So it's like, I watch it all thinking, well, just look at what's going on. Where are they meant to go? Like, you don't want them here, you don't want them there, you don't want them there, you're attacking them there, and then they have their homeland, historically their homeland. It's just insane. I think, and then to the people who oppose it, it's like Hamas on October 8th made it very clear: we're coming for New York and we're coming for London. Once Israel's out the way, so say all these little jihadist, barbaric shitholes win, yeah, all of these Islamic nations come together and they get rid of the Jews and they do what they openly told them in each war. The leaders said, "We're taking your women and your daughters as war booty," because that's what Muhammad did, yeah. So that's what we're going to do. So imagine you're in that country and you know that you're in this battle and you're surrounded, because you are surrounded by Islam. Yeah? And if they win, they're taking your children. They're going to rape your women. They're going to be their slaves. They've told you that. The leaders tell you that. You're going to fight. And you're pretty good at fighting. Yeah? And it's like you're penalised because you're better than them at fucking fighting and defending yourself. But if they were successful, so they come through, they get rid of all the Jews, they blitz the Jews are now gone. You think they're stopping there? You fucking idiots. You absolute idiots. Israel's not the target. The world is the target. Islamic domination, caliphate, jihad, Hamas or ISIS. Our government are about to possibly recognise the Palestinian state. Would you recognise ISIS? Would you give ISIS a state? Would you have recognised the state that they took over? Okay, they had large swathes of land between Syria and Iraq. Would you have recognised it? And why wouldn't you have done? That's ISIS. That's exactly the same situation here. And so our country's bringing the Palestinians in. Egypt don't bring them in. Where previously brought them in? And what happened when they allowed the Palestinians? They tried to overthrow the country. Look at Jordan, look at Lebanon, look at the previous history. Just learn from history. It's not hard, man. It's not even difficult. It's not even difficult. Just understand Islam and understand what Israel's surrounded by, and then actually go there and understand that there's many Muslims in Israel who are living peaceful lives, who can be elected to this apartheid state. It's like, oh man, it's just all when you actually go, because I went to Israel and just asked lots of questions, and I asked Muslims, it was quite mad, yeah. I went there thinking, well, every Muslim I meet is going to say they're oppressed by Israel. So when I went to the State of Israel and I met Muslims, Arabs in Israel, I say, what's it like living here? And I was on the Golan Heights, yeah? Land that Israel had to take to stop them having the upper hand and firing rockets all the time. So for defence, yeah? But I was in the Golan Heights and the wars were going on at the time. And I said to this Muslim lad, I said, like, what's it like living here for you as a Muslim? He was like, that's great. I was like, well, but are you oppressed? He said, I pray 5 times a day. He said, and their bombs are going off. We're watching. Yeah? He said, you think I want to be there? Like, and he's looking at me like I'm an idiot. I'm thinking, okay. And then I paid these young Muslims. I don't know if you see the story. So when I went there, I obviously spent time with Jews, but I thought, I can't come here and just listen to Jews. Yeah, I can't. I have to come and listen to both sides of this argument. And obviously, if these people knew... So I looked up, and there's a Fatah-controlled refugee camp in Bethlehem. And you've got all the signs when you go there. Do not go here. Do not enter this point. So the Jews...
With a red sign.
Yeah. So Israel's warning you, it's dangerous. Yeah? But when I went there, I just saw all these signs and thought, I want to go there and see what's going on. Yeah. So I met these young Muslims and I paid them. I said, look, mate, I'm here. They didn't know who I was. And I was with my mate from school, who's a black lad I grew up with. He likes his history. But when I've said, right, Dean, these lads are going to take us in there. And he's like, fucking, are you mad? Why am I going to go in there? Right? I said, see what it's like. Right? We'll spend a day on the camp. And he's like, I haven't come here to get killed. I said, no, neither have I, brother. I said, and I tried to say to him, I said to him, but imagine we do it, yeah? And we go there and we spend a day in this camp, of terrorist camp. We get to see what it's actually like, yeah? I said, it'd be great. And I've convinced him in the end. We've had an argument, I've convinced him. And as we're in the car on the way there, I'm shitting myself then because reality's setting in. I'm thinking, what the hell am I doing? Like, and I'm looking at these young Muslim lads, and they were really nice lads, yeah? And one of them was a 4th-generation refugee, but they had no idea who we were. So I formed a good relationship with them over the day, and I've got to the camp, and we're walking along, and there's loads of kids, and I'm kicking the football around with them. And it works, man, like, because the lad was a 4th-generation refugee, and as we're walking around, he said, I'll never fund Free Palestine. I'm like, what? He said, yeah, none of that goes to us. We see all your protests. He goes, we don't get any of that. That buys weapons, yeah? And I'm a 4th-generation refugee, and my children will be 5th, and theirs will be 6th, and theirs will be 7th. We are never getting out of here. I said, why not? And he said, we've had two or 3 times more money than Germany had after the World War, and we still live like this. I said, where's the football pitch? He said, there isn't one. Where's the park? There isn't one. I said, what do you mean there's not a park for all the kids? And I felt sorry, and I went there with my view and my opinion, and I wanted to give these kids money. So he explained, Western politicians are brought here, they see this, they want to help. We're used as a tool. And then he explained, so as we're walking around, I said, who's that? And there's a woman on the side of a house. They're all murals, so on every house there's a mural. And all these murals of the people that left this camp, the families that left and went and killed and done an attack against an Israeli.
Pay for slay.
Pay for slay. I never knew this. It changed my opinion on a lot of things. So most people won't know this, yeah? It's a mad eye-opener. So as I'm there, I said, all right, so she was a suicide bomber on a bus, and he described her as a martyr. So I'm thinking, well, she's not a fucking martyr. She's a terrorist bitch, yeah? But I didn't say that, because I'm in the terrorist camp. So we're walking round, and I said, who's this? And he goes, oh, they killed an Israeli. I said, okay. So, and he explained, I said, so who's oppressive? Do you feel oppressed living here? He said, yes, we're oppressed. I said, who's oppressing you? Expecting Israel, expecting the word to be Jews. He didn't mention Israel the whole time we're there. The Palestinian Authority. So then I'm thinking, well, who's the Palestinian Authority? He goes, well, they govern us. He goes, but, and he explained that these families and these people, any of them that have gone into Israel and killed an Israeli, so they get money and their family get money for the rest of their life. Yeah, they're paid money for the rest of their life. So then I said, so let me get this right. So if I'm in this situation that I'm in, and I'm looking at my mate, and there's all these little kids, and I've got 3 kids, and he's got kids, and we both love our kids. The only way out of here is to go kill a Jew. And he said, not a Jew, an Israeli. So I went, what? And he said, they just have to kill an Israeli. So someone who lives in the state of Israel, doesn't matter if they're Muslim or not, they can kill a Bedouin. They can kill a Muslim. And they get money, they get rewarded. So that sort of, because I've always just thought the whole conflict, the whole thing was jihad, the whole thing. And then I thought, Well, some of these people are mercenaries. They're just being hired. They're being paid to kill. And then when I got home, I looked at the Palestinian Authority. We fund them. British taxpayers' money funds this shit. It was mental. Everything I thought, and you know, like, always on the TV, whenever I showed Israel, there was like gun turrets, yeah? And there was this big wall, right? Which I thought was a wall that run around the whole of Gaza. I thought they were in this big prison camp. Well, when I went there, that wall's about 20 metres long. That little bit that I see on the news all the time, I was like, well, that's the wall. Oh my God. It was not what I thought. So then I looked and stood on the border of Gaza, and we climbed a tower. It's funny, man. You know, you've got the military towers. So obviously, and when I got out of Israel, when I got out of the Qatar camp, I got back to the state of Israel. And I sat down with this Muslim lad who I really liked. In fact, I related with him more than anyone I related with on that trip. You could have picked him up and put him in Luton, and it was like the kids I'd grown up with, yeah? The same background, the same way we would talk, the same. I was very similar to him.
You had a translator, or he spoke English?
No, he was English. He spoke English, yeah. He spoke English. And then when we got back, I put a camera on him, and I sat down in front of him, and I said, right, let me tell you who I am. I said, have you heard of the English Defence League? And he looked, he said, yeah. I said, my name's Tommy Robinson. I'm the founder of the English Defence League. And he was gutted, and he was gutted. And he looked, but by this time we'd had a rapport. We spent a couple of days together. Yeah, we were friendly, and he said, "Why? Why?" I said, "Because I had to hear your story, bro. I had to come here and hear from you. You're a fourth generation Muslim refugee. Because in my country, I'm told lots of things by NGOs, well-funded, mass campaigns, and everything I've found here is the opposite of what I've been told." And then, so when I ask people now who argue me about Palestine and Israel, I just say, have you ever been there? Have you ever spoke to anyone living in one of those camps? And I get there's lots of problems. I get there's lots of grievances. I get it. War, kids. I can see the radicalising factors on both sides, yeah? But I said, I went there, mate, and I've been there. And I didn't just go there. I risked my life to go there, to find out and understand. And all this has gone on. So I had a fast, and then we've gone, and there's a watchtower, an army tower, and there's no one on it. And it's on the Gaza border. It's on the Gaza Strip. So we've climbed up, and this was before we went there. And I'm with these lads, these Arab lads, yeah, and a translator. I'm with them, and we've got a long lens camera. You know, like when you see ISIS in the Toyota trucks with a flatback, doing the patrolling. That's them. So he's like, "That's Hamas." I was like, "Fuck off! Is that Hamas?" And we're zooming in, and we're on the watchtower, and they're over there, and they're driving along. And we're like, "You wankers, yeah?" And they're looking at us and we're looking at them. And I'm laughing my head off saying, "We're fucking swearing at Hamas." I said, "You wankers." and then at that point, the Israeli army comes screeching up. They went mad. They come flying up in their cars like, shouting at us like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Yeah, we were up on the army tower. And I was like, "We're swearing at Hamas." And they're like, "Get down off the fucking tower. Get down off the tower." But it was a fascinating trip. I had a great trip, man. In fact, usually back then, I don't now, but when I used to go away, I'd always have a bit of a party. I'd have a day of partying. In that trip when I went there, I didn't do any partying because I was so interested in understanding, in seeing. And the other thing I tried to explain to people, I felt safe. Even when I'm up there, I felt safe. But when you're walking around Israel, and do you know what else? We were driving, there's 1,000 young Arabs, Muslims, and they're camel racing. I was like, pull over. Yeah, so pull over here. And I get out, and I've got a tourist t-shirt. I love Israel. Yeah, big flag. So I went over, and I'm thinking... You
also bought a Mossad t-shirt,
a Mossad t-shirt. Yeah, I get loads of shit for that, yeah. But as I'm walking over, and I'm thinking, this is going to be... I'm videoing, thinking someone's going to confront me about the Israel t-shirt. So I'm walking into all these camel racing Arabs, and some lads stand there with a machine gun. And as we're walking across, no one batted an eyelid. Yeah? Trump had just been elected. So I'm asking the Muslims. So I'm like, "All right, lads, how you doing?" And speak English. A couple of them were talking to us. "What do you think of Donald Trump?" Because I'm expecting them to hate him.
They love him.
They fucking loved him. We need America strongman. I'm like, what? We need strongman for America, yeah? The Arab world needs strongman for America. I'm like, oh my God, man, this is mental, like everything. And then as they're racing off, but there was a load of Jews sitting with their skull caps on, having a picnic. And it was a moment for me because I looked and thought, you've got 1,000 young Muslim men and the Jewish families having a picnic. You couldn't do that in East London. They'd get harassed and be in danger, the Jewish family would, visibly wearing that kippah in this way with 1,000 young Muslim men. It worked better there in Israel than it works here. So a lot of the things I saw just surprised me, and I just tell that story and I get called Mossad for it, and it's like, I don't really give a shit. I get called Mossad. If Mossad, do you know anyone in Mossad? Give me some money, yeah? Because everyone says I've got your money anyway, so I'm always struggling, but everyone says it anyway. And I wore a Mossad t-shirt, and I was wearing this, pretty embarrassing. I was wearing swim shorts and flip-flops. And again, we were driving, there was a tank, so I was like, pull over by the tank. I was just there. Do you know Kay Wilson? What's her name? She was stabbed and butchered in a terrorist attack. And
Here?
In Israel.
In Israel.
And her friend was, she was Jewish, and her friend was Christian, and her friend was killed, macheted.
There's been thousands and thousands of attacks in Israel.
Well, I spent a week, because Kay was my tour guide, and I've become good friends with her, and it was a fascinating trip, man. I had a fascinating time. And I just think, and again, so I understand Islam. I understand jihad. So I understand what Israel faces. And I know what I'd do if I faced that as a leader or as a country. I know you've got to stand up. You've got to protect. You've got to prevent those groups in any way possible. In any way possible.
If anybody ever goes to Israel, please go and ask any Arab Israeli that lives in Israel if he would rather move to Jordan, to Syria, to Egypt. They say no.
They look at you like an idiot.
But are you stupid?
They look at you. There's 2 million. I never knew any of this. There's 2 million that live in Israel. It's mad. That are in government. Again, it's just I found so much of it mad. But I find that when you scratch beneath the surface on most stories, you find out the opposite. So, yeah.
And that exactly promotes the idea that the media is the weapon. You know, the media is the weapon against the actual thing that's happening.
Well, and the media, and you have to look at the funding from Iran and Qatar. Qatar, I'm glad what happened. Qatar have housed and bred radicalisation, extremism and jihad around the world. £750 million them fuckers have spent. Do you know they own everything in our capital city? How we're letting this shit happen from Qatar, how we're letting it happen. The Muslim Brotherhood, all these different groups, and they're infiltrating every section of our communities and society, whilst our government and our royal family are just like this with Qatar. Like, fuck Qatar. Stop their money. Stop their money. Stop it. Because the influence they have across the West, £750 million they spent. France, the damage and destruction that Qatar have funded in that country, while smiling, like they're our mates.
Do you think that's the reason why BBC and CNN speak against the government? What do you think is their incentive? Who incentivizes these organizations?
Well, you just follow the money. Follow the Qatari money. Follow the Iranian money. They've literally got proxy armies and representatives. Just follow the money on the influencers. Many of the influencers now are speaking like Dan Blizzard. What's his name?
Dan Bilzerian. There's no way this dude is speaking.
Well, as if he gives a shit. Joe, there's a picture of him sitting there now, like all juiced up and that, like fucking with the Quran, like reading this beautiful book. It's like, oh, fuck off, Dad. Fuck off, man. He probably got £1 million for that stupid post. Do you know what I mean? You have to understand that Qatar, follow the money. Qatar and these countries used to spend billions, right, on hundreds of millions of pounds in order to push Islam. And how did they do that? Through dawah centres, which the way to push Islam used to be on the street. So you had groups. We've got what they called Ali Dawah and Muhammad Hijab were part of IRA. IRA is an Islamic charity that receives a lot of this money. And then what they used to do is they'd fund influential young Muslims with silver tongues to be on the street, speaker's corner, standing outside city centres. And their job is to bring people to Islam, because that's what they want. They want an Islamic world. That used to be their job. Well, now it's changed because of these. How do you now reach people? Well, you get the influencers. You look at who's converting. Boxers, social media influencers.
Andrew Tate.
How much money?
Aiden Ross started saying Free Palestine recently. Aiden Ross, you know, the streamer. He's a huge streamer, Jewish streamer. Started wearing a keffiyeh and saying Free Palestine on his.
For fuck's sake. Do you know what? Get me in America so I can wake up the American youth on these issues, yeah? Because it's like this madness was going on here until 2 years ago. So the youth would all be celebrating Palestine. We are now reaching the youth to understand British identity, to tell them the truth. But there's a war being fought, and we're losing. Yeah, we were losing because we were censored and controlled. Aiden Ross, see, I just see it as total cowardice, because it's easy to do that, and you get loads of likes of Muslims, and no one's going to kill you. No one's going. So to tell the truth on these issues gets you in big trouble with governments, with everyone. Yeah? So
people are scared of the repercussions. Aidan Ross knows that if he's going to be on the side of Israel, on the side of the Jews, and he spoke for Israel.
Then he can't go to boxing shows. He can't go here.
He can't.
People will confront him. So he surrenders as such. This is what happens. You know, like Sneeko. Sneeko's gay. Yeah? You know Sneeko?
I was supposed to debate him.
Was you? Okay, so Sneeko. There's a video of Sneeko, yeah? I watched it. I couldn't believe it, man. And he's saying, yeah, well, when I was about 16, like, I wasn't sure if I was gay. I was like, weren't sure if you're gay. If you're not sure if you're gay, bruv. Yeah? You're not sure if you like dick and like men. You're gay if you're not sure. Yeah?
And now he's a part of the Muslim community.
Then he becomes Islamic, and then he done this it was a good video. It was paid, it must have cost a lot, the production of it, where he goes to Saudi Arabia, yeah? And he visits the Hajj, and he comes back and does his video about how I just felt peace and felt love and felt, that's like bollocks, absolute bollocks. You just got a big paycheck to promote Islam, which is what's going on.
Which is leading me to my next question. If everybody has a price,
yep.
Were you ever offered money to shut up and not speak?
Google the story, Af Salamin. Put this in there. Google the story Af Salamin, right? Af Salamin, this is a crazy story. Af Salamin was a member of the Conservative Party, a Muslim. He was a captain in the British Army for 10 years. He taught at Sandhurst. He taught Prince Harry and Prince William. He spoke the Queen's English better than the Queen, okay? He was perfect for what they want. Now, Af Salamin approaches me, English Defence League Times, yeah? And he says, and he asked for a meeting. So I go for a meeting with him. He says, Tommy, you can have a friend in Parliament and money will never be a worry. What I want you to do, I want you to set up an English Defence League demonstration and I want you to bring it to Dudley. I will then step in and call a meeting with you, setting all this shit up, yeah? You, out of respect, because he knows our history of the armed forces, out of respect for the armed forces and my history within the armed forces, you agree to remove your demonstration. We then spend time bringing people together, blah, blah, blah. And he says, I've been offered a seat by David Cameron on the cabinet. But my goal's not the cabinet, my goal is the top. Now, what I've already done is secured funding from Qatar. Yeah? We're going to solve the problems in Dudley, the area where it's here for him to be the Member of Parliament, of homelessness, of unemployment. We've got regeneration money coming from the whole of there. My 8-year plan is this. Telling me all this bullshit, because they're so used to, this is Pakistani politics, yeah? And he's sitting there saying it. So I'm thinking, you rat, yeah? So I said, all right. I said, let's organise another meeting. Yeah, let me go away and think about this, Afsala. So I fuck off. I go away. I come back and organise another meeting with him, and I wear a wire and a camera. So I sit down.
He wasn't aware of anything.
Oh, he's got no idea. Yeah, he just got no idea. And it's funny because we sit there and I go to this restaurant in Birmingham, which is dangerous for me. And he turns up with these two gangsters, Pakistani gangsters, and I sit down. And I'm talking to them, their mate just got shot dead. And I've got it all on record. And they're talking about it. And they own about 100 businesses. And one of the businesses they own was a hotel. And the hotel got raided for grooming gangs, because it's what the Muslims use. So they're talking about all this. And I'm sitting there, and they're like, yeah, Tommy, man, and none of us are stupid. That's one of the things they said. And you hear me giggling. So I'm thinking, none of us are stupid. I'm fucking recording yous. Yous are stupid, you mugs. If you think this is going to work. And then he makes all these offers on the tape for what he wants. So I get him to reaffirm what he wants from me, and that he'll pay me, and that I'll have a friend in Parliament and nothing matters, blah, blah, blah. So then I get all that, and then I go away, and I agree with them. I say, yeah, I'll do this. Let me talk to the other lads in the EDL, blah, blah, blah. And then I set another meeting up because I had the covert recording, but I wanted pictures from other angles. So I had people sat in different places in the restaurant, just taking photos of us sat together. And then the election's coming up. It's a week before the election. And I walked into the Daily Mail, and I've got a non-disclosure agreement for this. Yeah, they paid me, but I don't give a shit. Yeah, right? Sue me, don't care. And I've got all the recordings of this as well. Yeah, which I've never really. This was before I was a journalist. It's 2014. I should have got recognition off the government for this. So I've got all the stuff. So I walk into the Daily Mail and I sit down and say, there's all the recordings of your new member of cabinet for the Conservative Party, because they're winning the election. Your new member of cabinet offering me money to incite racial tensions, to inflame racial tensions, so he can step in as the hero, blah, blah, blah. So they sit and listen to it in the Daily Mail, and they're just like, what the fuck? And I said, that's it all. I gave them start to finish. They said, we need every bit. I said, that's it all, right? So they sit there, and then obviously I had to sign paperwork, and I had to stay in their offices for 2 days. You know, we had to stay there, right? Because it become front page news with 8 pages inside. And what they did, And it's funny because Afsal Amin rings me, which I'm going to put this. I'm going to work on something. It's called the Lost Tapes because I recorded everything at this time for 2 years. I've got all the old footage for 2 years. The height of the EDL, me leading the EDL, when I left the EDL, why I left the EDL, all of the problems with dealing with problems within the EDL. I've got so much footage. But I wasn't a journalist back then. Yeah, I had never made documentaries. So instead I went to the papers with it. And Afsal Amin rings me. And I've got him on loudspeaker. I'm like, hello? And he's like, Tommy. I'm like, right, mate, how you doing? And he says, the Daily Mail have been on the phone. I said, oh, yeah? He goes, what's going on? I said, some things ain't for fucking sale, Afsal. Yeah? And then I just started laughing, yeah? I said, you're fucked. Because he was nearly here, yeah? I'm laughing my head off thinking, you rat, right? And then from that, so he flees. He leaves the country back to Qatar, yeah? But when I'm talking to him in the recordings, I played it back. He had two children at Eton. So both his kids go to Eton. How are you paying the costs of sending 2 children to Eton as a captain in the British Army? So someone, probably Qatar, have funded this entire operation. And when the Daily Mail then went in on Afsal Amin, now when you read the newspaper article, you won't realise it's my story because they hammer me. Racist, thug, like they went in on me, but I didn't care because I'd signed a non-disclosure agreement. I was getting him, he was gone, yeah, which was the purpose of the story. He was gone. But what they done is when the newspapers then started researching into Afsal Amin, like how shit are our security services? Because they found links and leaflets that he'd wrote 3 years before he joins the military at Sandhurst. And in the leaflets, he was planning and talking about the future Mujahideen who were going to take over entire towns and cities. So this is an undercover jihadist who was put into Sandhurst, taught Prince William and Harry, becomes a captain in the British Army, and was about to become a cabinet minister for the Conservative Party. And when he's talking, this is so true as well. He laughs. He's laughing. These Muslim lads are laughing around the table, saying that when David Cameron walks in the room, who was our Prime Minister at the time, there'd be 200 people in that room. He does a beeline straight for Afsal, straight to talk to him, because he was the perfect Muslim face they needed. Yeah, he was he spoke the Queen's English great, captain in the British Army. So at that point, he had infiltrated our government and was about to be in a position of power. So I look at, this is what brings me concern with other Muslim politicians. Because I ask, who you work, and when he sat down with these 2 gangster boys, and they must have, I'll think about how much money they must have put into this project to bring him to the top of government. And they got fucked. Fucked them. But when I think about it, the 2 Muslim lads, when they sat down and he's a Conservative politician, I said, lads, you don't strike me as Tories, Conservatives. They said, no, we're not. I said, so what political party do you support? He goes, oh, we're Labour. I said, so, but you're funding this. And they said, yeah, we don't care. We just want our man in. So I thought politics don't matter. They just want their person in, which is, look at Sadiq Khan, look at Baroness Farsi, look at all of them who have got into politics. Look at the clown up in Scotland. So, yeah.
And by the way, that's another part of jihad. That's jihad. Infiltrating from the inside to the inside.
Yeah. And it's Pakistani politics in Britain. Money, sway, influence, pain, fraud, corruption. It's just, now it's here. And it's here, and the Labour Party know it's here, and the government know it's here. It's across the whole country. But they don't care because they want to maintain power, and they know they need that community. But I should have, when I think about that, I saved what possibly, he says in the recordings that his goal was to become Prime Minister. He could have become Prime Minister. He could have done. And I didn't get a thank you. In fact, I just got put in prison again and got attacked again and again and again. But yeah, read that story, Afsal Amin, man. It's mad. It's a mad story.
The recordings, you don't have access to them anymore?
I've got all the recordings.
And
I've got, so the lost tapes. So basically, at this time, when this was going on, I'm going to sit down and do a podcast soon with this gentleman. A lad come to see me who was a journalist, Bobby Dennis. A lad come to see me who was a journalist, and he sat down and he was making a documentary, and he got commissioned by the BBC. So he's gone back to the BBC after spending a year filming me and said, this is what I found. Yeah. He's not racist. He's not extreme. They're doing so. Man, we can't tell that story. It's like, what? No, you need to tell this story. So then him out of principle, I said, no, that's not what I found. Yeah. So then they've said, okay, well, we've commissioned you, they've paid him, so you can't use that footage. And they had something like however many years on it. So they blocked him telling the story. But then he fell out. He was outraged. So he come and told me, he said, like, they want me to ruin you. Like, they want me to ruin you. So we're going to call it, it's the lost tapes. There's 2 years worth of footage, an incredible story. showing so much reality with what the problems are that could have been solved that we were telling back then. So I've just asked him to do a podcast for me so he could explain what happened in that situation. And then hopefully, with his footage, we can make that into the Tommy Robinson, the Lost Tapes. Because when people see, they'll see that all that time ago, the issues we were talking about, and they'll also see the problems I had with the EDL, because there was some, I'd go back from a demonstration after Lee Rigby saying we've got such important issues to talk about, but people are throwing bottles. That's all the media are going to show.
I want to ask you 2 more questions. I hope we can make it in 10 minutes. The most important one, in my opinion, right now is what happened to Charlie Kirk yesterday. How does it make you feel? How does it make you feel because you have children, because you're in the same space?
The minute it happened, I looked, and I saw it popping up, and I was doing an interview with, who was I with yesterday? Tyler Olivia, American. And I was like, Charlie Kirk shot. And then it was coming through, and then I realised he was dead. And then selfishly, I thought of my kids, because Salwan Mamika, do you know Salwan? So Salwan was in Sweden, and he come here as a refugee. And when I was in jail, he got assassinated on a live stream video for burning the Quran.
I heard about this.
Yeah, no one helped him. I went over and done a video before I went to jail called Save Salwan, trying to plead with the governments to keep him safe. And they went in and executed him on behalf probably of Iran or Iraq. The countries wanted him dead.
He was in his house.
And Turkey, he was in his house and they live streamed. Turkey wanted him dead. And at that time, my children shit themselves. And I'm in prison. So it's out of any control of me, but they're terrified because they know I was friends with him. They know I told this story, and they know that there's a similar level of threat to me. So I then thought, I'm panicking because I'm sat in my cell thinking that my kids are panicking and are they safe? Now, when that hit yesterday, I just thought of what my kids are going to look and think. They're going to watch that video and they're going to worry it's dad at some point. And then straight away, as I'm sitting there, my daughter, my son, I could see them all messaging me. And then I'm thinking of how scared they're going to be of that. And then I'm looking today, and it was only today, and then I'm looking at his wife, his kids. He wasn't unfair. But I've confronted, in a way, jihadists. He just exercised his speech for debate and encouraged debate and discussion. He was a great man, and he spoke up for me. I think only now we'll realise how great the world will realise what a man he was and what legacy, just in those years. And he only got to 31. What could he have got to? And I believe that he was, if you listen to what he was saying, which I was excited by, someone with his recognition and his following was speaking honestly about the dangers of Islam to America. That's what he started talking very openly about. Islamic immigration, we have to stop this to save America. And now he's dead. And we're, as I said, we've been trying to quickly make videos. We've got our event in 2 days. Our event is about free speech. And he has just took a bullet for free speech. He's took a bullet for every one of us who believe in free speech, in the core principles that founded America and the rights. And I just think if his kids are going to grow up now, and I'm looking at his wife, and obviously I correlate with myself. When I'm watching it, I'm thinking of my own family at the same time, and what. But he didn't do anything like this. And the political violence that's been encouraged by the left, by governments, they've literally put targets on us all. They've justified and dehumanised us to think that whoever's killed him, we're yet to find out, but it's a sniper shot. It's a professional sniper shot. It's a kill shot. So if we ever find out, but he was that influential in waking up the next generation. Now, you have to understand that globalist powers, corporations, have spent billions in a generation to try and weaken the next generation, to try and indoctrinate them. When someone like him comes along, he's a danger to their plan. We're all, not on his level, but we're probably a danger to their plan. What we're doing with the United Kingdom, if we put 1 million people together tomorrow. So I guess threat levels, risk levels, it made me think a lot. Not that I haven't thought already. There's 6 Muslims in jail now who've got 30 years. They got caught with guns and bombs on the way to kill us then. This was years ago. So I've been awake to the threat. I'm not worried by the threat walking out this door when I see Muslims. I'm worried by the state.
Who will try to shut you up?
who will try to shut you up and destroy you, but wreck you and ruin you and your family in any way, in every way possible. Shut down on PayPal, shut down on MailChimp, shut down every bank in the UK, can't get a bank, can't operate. They make your life impossible. There is no, I don't know if America understands, like, there's no free speech in Europe. There's only one place in the world that believes in freedom of speech. And do you know what? We're going to play a tribute on Saturday to the United States of America, to everyone, and obviously now to Charlie Kirk, and lead it in his name. But when you voted for Donald Trump, that was a vote not just to save America, that was a vote to save us. We now have hope. We have hope that we didn't have. And that's come from Elon Musk, giving us a platform to talk on. And it's come from the election of Donald Trump. And knowing that J.D. Vance and Donald Trump are battling against the European Union, battling against our tyrants in power who wish to take our speech. No British politicians are fighting for our speech. Americans are.
Wow.
But like,
I have to tell you, when I saw the assassination, the first thing I thought was of myself, of course, because I was offered to go speak at a college campus in Florida.
But this can't happen. It can't be successful now. If you're watching it, anyone who's speaking out now, you can't bend because of these fears.
That was the goal. They're trying to silence us. They're trying to keep us in a cage.
They hope that they hope. And I'm looking at the messages and I'm thinking, are the British audience going to be scared now for Saturday? You can't do that. You cannot, even if you are scared, that you cannot allow the assassination's motive was to cause fear and silence people. If you take a back seat, if you cancel your next college campus, if you do that, even if you're scared, even if your wife tells you not to, you can't, because then you're giving success to that murdering bastard who just shot him dead. You're taking away the purpose of Charlie Kirk's life and what he stood for. You're surrendering to it, and you're allowing those children who are going to now grow up with no dad, at least let the purpose of his mission be successful. And that is standing up, telling the truth. He talked a lot about courage and telling children to be courageous. And to everyone who is taking a message of fear from his assassination, doesn't mean you're not going to be scared. If you're British, it doesn't mean it. It means that show courage and at least live in the legacy of what he wanted. So I think that only now the world will now realise the genius and the ability that man had, as I'm sitting going through only even just into the night and this morning, and the influence he had. And it's an attack on every one of us, man. It's an attack on every one of us.
Last question.
Yep.
Behind all the court cases, prison, headlines, what do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun?
What do you do for fun? You want to cleanse your soul a little bit. You want to enjoy with your family.
This is fun.
Podcasting is fun?
No, taking on Islam's fun.
Enjoyable.
It's fucking great. Come and get involved. No, it's not. What do I do for fun? I have a beautiful family. I enjoy lots, man. Do you know what I've started doing, which I wish I would have done, is if I could relive my life, I never understood the importance of physical exercise. Yeah. And only when I went through a pretty dark place, when I got divorced, when I was deplatformed, when I was censored, I was invisible, I was struggling, and it was at that point that I found exercise and gym, and I then now know the massive importance of it, and nature. I go on hikes. I like walking for fucking hours, usually because I'm on this, but and taking time. So I enjoy that, and I've got that embedded that into my son, who become really fit and healthy. So I just enjoy spending time with my kids, but I enjoy exercise and gym, and I enjoy lots, man. I used to enjoy football till they started getting on the knees. I used to be football crazy. And then when they started getting on the knees for Black Lives Matter, it's like you took the love out of it. You've ruined it for us. You've politicised the sport that we go to get away from politics. You started sticking rainbows on your armbands and on flags and that. It just done my head in. So yeah, for fun, spend time with my family, man. Do you know, sometimes I sit there and think, a normal life, I haven't got a normal life. I'll never have a normal life. I've sacrificed a normal life. But I've not just sacrificed a normal life for me, I've sacrificed a normal life for my family. So I sit here sometimes to think, peace, man. I wouldn't mind just a peace, because I don't really have I'm always waiting. When I walk out of here, I'll have to be ready. And it's pretty tiring at times. That is. But then, I found finding a place of safety where I can relax, which I ended up 3 years ago leaving the UK. And that's what I do now. I come here, I go mad, and then I just jet off. And then people say, he's always on holiday. He's always on holiday. I think, I ain't got a home. I don't have a home. I can't have a home. What if I had a home? I said, people will come to my home. They'll find my home. So I live in Airbnbs. Mad.
I think you went vacationing not too long ago and somebody said that you fled the country?
Yeah, well, that was after the incident at St Pancras where some lad come up to me. And even when you look at that scenario, like, I was confronted. I was the victim. I defended myself. And I'm not going to apologise for defending myself.
Of course.
And otherwise, when people pick my flaws, they say, oh, well, this and that. I think it was never going to be nurses that stood up against Islam and jihad, you idiots. Yeah? You've got to be of a certain mindset to think I'm not backing down to this. And I think that all Englishmen and British men, not just Englishmen actually, I need to unite the whole of Britain because the Welsh are mental and strong, and so are the Scots and so are the Irish. There's some dangerous, we've rivaled them at football for years, but I think that we need to remember who we are, and we're not weak, and we're certainly not cowards.
I agree.
And we never have been.
I agree. And I'd like to wrap it up in this opportunity. First of all, thank you for even meeting me and having this conversation. I think you're brilliant.
No, thank you.
And in this opportunity, I'd also like to plug it in again because I do think these two books.
Yeah.
Can I keep the other?
Yeah,
two?
you keep them if you.
These two books are brilliant. You can get them at
trbooks.co.uk, and they are and no one's refuted. You see Muhammad's Quran, like that is put together from Islamic academics, from Islamic historians. It's not my opinion. I haven't put it together. It's not my opinion in it. Obviously, the introduction to it is showing that throughout history, Islam's never been known as peaceful. What is our jobs of government, of army leaders, is to educate the public on danger and risk. And that's what they always did. They told the truth about Islam until Islam become part of Britain. And then they're too scared to. So the only countries that tell the truth about Islam now would be probably Poland, probably Hungary, and Britain would if we didn't have 4 million Muslims and when they weren't scared. So, yeah.
Thank you, Tommy Robinson, so much for this conversation. I think you're amazing, amazing, amazing. And hopefully I can meet you again in the future.
Thank you, man.
If you'd like to watch more of my stuff, please check out my channel down below. If you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit that notification button so you can be notified every time I upload new content. If you'd like to support me and the channel financially, you can do that using Buy Me Coffee or Patreon down in the links below. Also, we now have a Discord that you can join down in the link below. And now you can become a YouTube member and enjoy specific YouTube perks. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video.